But I'm not the only one.
It's a. Consistent answer. Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. It is our 9 o'clock Board of County Commissioners briefing session. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. And it looks like we've got a pretty busy morning, so we are going to just get moving. So we'll start with Tori. I started with you yesterday because I think the wrong. So that's because I feel like I've been here a lot. You must know that also. Thank you for coming back. Absolutely. So I'm here to brief you on more work under our HCA reentry initiative. And this one is for a service agreement for electronic health records in our detention facility. It will just be for our detention facility. I can say my medical staff are excited about this. The payment fee is either $500 a month minimum or 8.47% of what we bill for Medicaid. And the estimate of my folks and working with these folks is about 141,000 a year. Again, just an estimate. So it's either 500 a month or 8.47% of what we bill. And I also want to take this time to give a shout out to my staff. All credit to them who have worked so hard on this. At a meeting last month, the folks at the HCA state level said we are the first juvenile court in the nation to accomplish going through milestone 3 and getting this initiative going in practice. So I just want to give a shout out to them for that. Congratulations. That's exciting. Yeah, it is. Any questions on this agreement? No? All right, have a good day, everybody. Well, thank you. Hey, Liz.
Nurse. I've got some slides. And this morning I'm briefing you on our Spokane County Comprehensive Solid Waste Management Plan amendment. Our amendment is just on one section of the plan. Our plan was approved back in 2022, but we had some changes that we needed to make to our disposal locations, given what we've been through in the last couple of years with taking over operations of our transfer stations. So there's just a few amendments that we made to still be compliant with state law for this plan. So the first couple amendments are pretty benign. We changed our disposal locations from Roosevelt landfill, which is down in Klickitat County, to Adams County landfill. The waste to energy facility, their ash is no longer going to Roosevelt, it's going to Finley Buttes landfill, which is closer to Boardman, Oregon. And then the modes of transportation for waste are being long hauled because Adams County and Finley Buttes are accessible with trucking, not rail at this time. And then the other amendment that we made was that we updated some service maps. So there was a annex area between the city of Spokane and the city of Airway Heights. This annexed area was approved back in 2012, but with the Utilities and Transportation Commission, they regulate a 10-year period of where haulers take over areas. So City of Spokane just requested, if we're opening up this section of the plan, can you update the maps? So we said, absolutely. Next slide. Now, because we opened the plan up to an amendment, state law requires us to now include some organics management laws. There have been a couple different organics management laws that have passed in the last couple of years. So there is a Washington state goal to reduce organics that are thrown away by 75%. And what that means is in that blue area, the dark blue area, in the future, 2027 first, all of the residents in those areas will have an option to subscribe to organics curbside service at their homes. In 2030, that area will have mandatory curbside collection of organics. So they will not have an option to not subscribe. However, right now we are currently exempt from mandatory collection service. And again, that doesn't occur until 2030. But we are currently exempt because our destination facility, Bartek, does not have capacity to accept more food waste at this time. So their capacity constraints are our space as well as technology to deal with the anticipated level of contamination that's going to come with food waste coming from businesses. So I think grocery stores, packaging, your training and retraining staff, that is usually a high turnover industry. So right now, how we wrote the amendment in the plan is that we're giving ourselves some time to investigate options to be able and be in compliance by 2030. We don't have a silver bullet solution right now. Bartek is still accepting our organics because we don't have a lot of food waste in our organics right now. A lot of yard debris, which they love. So it basically changes the recipe for Bartek because they're getting a lot of wet, dense food waste that doesn't compost at the same rate as yard debris. So next slide, please. Then the other parts that we had to update in our plan are statements around our transfer station capacity to handle increased organics. So to be clear, this is not really a new stream of waste. The state law is trying to reduce the amount of food waste in the garbage. And so what would happen at our transfer stations is that we have these big tipping floors, and the majority of it is dedicated to garbage and some of it is dedicated to organics. If the organics are being pulled out of garbage, we essentially would dedicate more floor space to handling organics and less to garbage. If organics is being pulled out of garbage like it should. So that's up to date. Ecology has looked over our amendment. And then the last piece is we have to submit a cost assessment questionnaire to the Utilities and Transportation Commission. And that's all set. We've worked with the haulers to get their numbers and their forecasts on tonnages and customers. And we'll be submitting that to the UTC soon. We don't actually need a resolution. This is just an amendment. I worked with Attorney Coulter to determine that our course of action is really just to update our member jurisdictions. We've already updated the SPAC a couple weeks ago. And we will be doing a full plan revision in 2027 when our full plan is due for the next cycle.
Lindsay, could you talk about what's causing the focus on food waste?
Yeah.
How much time do we have?
Yeah.
It's the contamination and then the forced collection. So what's driving it?
At the state level, there's a big push, probably in the last 5 years, around thinking through what's in our garbage and why. There's been a big push around greenhouse gas emissions, and when you dispose of food waste and organic waste in a landfill, it contributes to methane. So they're really trying to curb methane emissions throughout the state and sources of the methane. So that focal point was, okay, we know that food waste generates a ton of methane when it's in landfills, so can we pull that food waste out? So this was, I would say, a consideration of how do we promote taking food waste out of landfills? And one solution that was proposed and passed was, let's figure out how to make curbside collection of food waste more accessible.
How are they planning on handling the food waste once it's collected? How are we handling it? How's the state's handling it? How's the disposal going to be handled?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of counties and cities grappling with the same issues and questions that we are right now. Currently, all of our organics go to Bartek, and they have done a phenomenal job at handling the growing amount of compost. Right now, if you look in curbside residential bins, there's not a lot of waste. If people are signing up for curbside service, a lot of it's yard debris, grass clippings, leaves, and then you get some estimates are around 10% of that weight is actual food waste.
Pizza boxes.
Pizza boxes, exactly.
I know that.
So right now, there's just not a lot of food waste going in, and that's the way Bartek has set up their process. It's the way they've set up how their recipe for composting. When we change that, that's where they're nervous, because right now there's about 100 commercial kitchens that are actually, commercial kitchens or grocery stores that are actually setting aside their food waste to be composted. There's over 2,100 commercial kitchens in Spokane County. Most of them are not diverting food waste, and that's going into the garbage. And so it's a big formula change for us. I don't think it's something we can't accomplish, but we want to make sure we do it right and think through where is it going, how is it being processed. So we crafted our statements in the amendment to give us a little bit of time and flexibility to figure out a better solution if it's not Bartek.
So just so I'm clear, in 2030, so you referenced the commercial kitchens, restaurant, grocery stores. But when you are saying the mandatory curbside for food waste, that you're talking actual residential homes, correct?
Correct.
In 2030. So is that a separate bin than the green one or?
Same one.
Oh, okay, so it'll be mandatory to everybody have the green yard waste bin at that, not a separate
No,
one just
not
for
for
food waste, okay.
No,
Okay.
and
Okay.
so, what was it, 30,000?
About 40,000 tons.
But how many customers?
Cause I would say today that
Yeah.
majority of people do have a yard waste bin,
The-
right?
I think the last estimate we heard was that when mandatory kicks in, our collectors will have to add 30,000 green bins to the system.
Okay.
So it's a significant increase. We are having conversations with them about, what does that look like? Do you really want to go from 0 to 30,000 additional in 1 year, or is there going to be some ramping up? This kind of discussion, and again, it's at this point theoretical because it hasn't gotten into place, is what does that do to contamination? Because the prevailing theory is that those that opt in to a green bin are doing so with the knowledge and intent on how to use it. When it just shows up at everybody's door that isn't opted in, what does that do to contamination? How much additional food waste will we see? There's a lot of questions.
I assume that there's kind of some historical knowledge from back when they originally handed out the original blue little tubs that before it was the big blue, recycling bin, everybody had the little tubs. I assume there's probably some historical data from back then on what was the contamination level because those were given out to everybody too, I think without even asking back in the 90s, early 90s.
I think typically what we see is when you get and this has happened with recycling too, when you get a bigger bin, you end up with more contamination versus, when you had to sort it out into your cardboard and paper. People that take the time to sort that are doing a better job than we have a 96-gallon bin. So the fear is, like Kyle said, that bin shows up at your door. You're not going to take the time because you're being required to pay for it. Take the time to take the strawberries out of the container before you toss the whole thing in. And that's Bartek's fear.
Do you know, so you said with the map there of the blue area, you're saying that it'll be about 30,000 additional yard waste bins that'll have to be, any idea how many currently exist in that area? I mean, it seems that at least like in my neighborhood, and the neighborhoods are, on garbage day, just about every house has a yard waste bin that's out there on the curb, next to their normal garbage can. So, I mean, that 30,000 kind of surprised me. That seems like a very high number. I would think that most people I know have a yard waste bin already. So you don't? What do we do with your yard clippings?
I don't either.
That I have on 10 acres, they go down the slope.
Oh. Mary throws them,
She does her own composting.
she throws them on the conservation futures land next door.
That's what the back deck is for. A good arms throw and you can clear this.
And I think that there's still some exempt areas, right? That within the county that
Oh, yeah.
will still be exempt.
Yeah,
I don't even offer.
I don't think you're in the,
Yeah,
I
because,
don't think
yeah,
you're in the map here. As I look at the map here.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have to haul my trash.
No, but I'm just at the area
Like,
in
I
the
go to
blue,
Transfer station a lot.
but in the area in the blue here, I would think most of those people. Do
But
have
it-
yard waste bins already.
But if somebody's, you know, hiring a lawn service, they don't.
Yeah.
Oh, good, oh, I guess I didn't even
A lot
think
of
of
people do
that.
it.
Yeah, if you're not mowing your own lawn, yeah, you
One
wouldn't.
doesn't have a lawns.
Hmm.
Stand.
Yeah, good, you know, I have lawn service and stuff, so we don't have a green bin
Yeah,
and stuff, so we got cardboard and that was it, but. Is there a market for this much compost?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know, what I see personally is, you know, we force everybody to recycle everything other than their husband or spouse. And there's no market for it. I mean, we got glass, we got aluminum, and nobody wants the stuff. So I can see where we're gonna be collecting a whole bunch of compost and there's no market for it. And so it's gonna sit somewhere, attract a whole lot of flies and change the rotation of the earth. I mean, it's just unintended consequences of this stuff. And I just kind of wonder, has anybody thought through this?
I think what we hear in the industry is that the current system of green waste is working well. There's a market out there. Contamination is always the number one thing, because once it reaches a certain amount of contamination,
Yeah.
it's also no longer classified as organic. So like, just for an example, one of our tech's biggest headaches right now is compostable utensils. Those utensils, sure, they compost faster than a plastic fork, but they don't compost in the amount of time, and they have a high enough plastic content that they're tipping the scale on the amount of allowable plastic material in their organic compost. And that's becoming that just single addition to the compost stream has actually had ramifications on staying into those thresholds. But I'd say what everybody's bigger fear is the food. If we really see the increase in food waste, we're talking about a different industry. You're talking about digesters. And yeah, you can produce methane and you can work it, and it is feasible for a very large upfront cost and a very large upfront smell, and ongoing aromas of a food waste processor. You're not gonna wanna be their neighbor.
And so what is food waste? Because I mean, I use garbage disposal and it goes into your other system. So I guess I'm just kind of like, what is considered food waste?
Anything that's food and thrown
not
away,
in a wrapper, right?
and not in a wrapper, yeah.
Hopefully,
So, yeah, not grass clippings or leaves or twigs, but the actual food that we eat.
So
if you
people
think
are like
about every
scraping their
plate of
dishes
every restaurant and
into-
every food establishment or grocery store in the entire county, all of that not going in through the trash cycle and going into a different cycle.
But it's already happening now. So
To a degree.
it's just going into the trash instead of into the recycle. So that's the shift that you're thinking is gonna happen. Okay. Sorry, just trying to wrap my head around what this really means, because I'm just thinking of my personal stuff, but at a restaurant, if they're, right now, they're just putting all their plates into the trash, scraping them.
We have a rendering plant yet? Since
Might.
Baker is,
Yeah.
the Baker is shut down and stuff, and I'm not sure, is there a replacement facility for them in this market? So where's everybody taking their grease? Dead animals.
Dead animals are being landfilled. So it's a special process and it goes to Adams County. Because we don't have a different option.
In this map,
Last
if I
question.
understand correctly, none of it's compulsory or mandatory today, it's all an optional. Inside all the jurisdictions, whether it's a city provided service or separate.
Then 2030 is when it becomes mandatory.
As long as we're not exempt. So there's some other processes and work groups occurring right now to figure out exemption processes for whole counties or individuals.
Thank you.
Commissioners, one last comment here. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late here, but I did not get to a chance to introduce Lindsay under her new title. She is our solid waste administrator. She has officially taken over for the large shoes of Deb Geiger, and she has taken this role as of the beginning of this month. And so I just wanted to congratulate her. We couldn't be more excited. We had an incredibly competitive field of candidates, and it was shocking. I mean, Spokane County is obviously an attractive place to be. We got some really cool interest, and Lindsay completely rose above the field and demonstrated why she should be here today, sitting before you as the administrator for our solid waste division.
Congratulations. Yeah.
You'll be seeing a little bit more of me and probably in a couple of weeks, come back with some great proposals for the transfer stations.
Thank you and congratulations. Okay, Ben, you're right on time.
Morning, commissioners. They talk about aquifer protection area, and Morton will talk about the renewal of the Spokane Valley Rathrum Prairie Aquifer Protection Area.
Congratulations.
And then discussion of the West Plains, potential West Plains aquifer protection. So I think Amy Sumner talk about renewal.
Yeah, so many of you are probably already aware of results. The SVRP Aquifer Protection Area passed with 74% approval. I was a little disappointed in the low voter turnout though. I think it was 26%, so just gonna say that. Certification of the results happens today. Our next step is the interlocal agreements for the APA fund distribution. These will be very similar to previous ILAs we've had with the municipalities, where the county administration for the fee collection as well as the base operations for the water resources section will be covered. And then the remaining funds will be distributed to the participating municipalities on a proportional basis. The city of Spokane Valley's ILA has already been approved. Next up is the city of Spokane, which has been signed by the city and is ready for your review and approval on August 26th. And we are currently working with Liberty Lake and Millwood for their ILAs.
Do we know what the distribution of the vote was with regard to jurisdictions? Where was the greatest strength? Where was less strength? Where's an opportunity to help educate?
We have not, I haven't looked at it.
I very briefly, and I think most of the precincts, other than 9005, and I don't know exactly off the top of my head where that's at. I think it's one of the southern precincts. All of the yeses and nos, the yeses were more than the nos, but in that precinct, it was more nos than yeses. So that was the only thing that I caught off the top of my quick perusal of the results by precinct.
We can get that information.
Yeah, I mean, if wherever the voter turnout was, or the results were low, I mean, there's an opportunity to help educate and inform and yada, yada, yada. That was the only interest.
And you have to remember, not everyone across the entire
Oh, yeah,
county
no.
was voting, so. And yeah, just in the pre-canvassing board, the canvassing board, we finalized it today, but, yeah, and the low voter turnout is similar to what it was, the same type of election. 2 years ago, I think, or 3 years ago, so,
Yeah,
so it was, right, just a little bit higher than what we showed 4 years ago, so. It's just statistic, just people in August don't vote.
Even when the ballot goes right to your house.
Yes, and you can return it in the mail.
I just want to highlight one quick little piece about these interlocal agreements and we'll have the city of Spokane one in front of you first. As we work with the other two jurisdictions, but I think it's really cool that all of the jurisdictions that participate in the SBRP Aquifer Protection Area have agreed to this status quo where the county gets to run its program and they see the value of the county's program prior to the distribution. The county gets a distribution as well. We all get a proportional distribution, but everybody is on board with supporting the monitoring, the education, the studies that we work together. They want to work with us a little bit more on what else we might do for the benefit of the SBRP as a whole. But it was nice. That was not a point of contention with anybody. But he's very supportive of the work that this program has done. And I think that's a testament to the great work they're doing.
So that's it on the SBRP Aquifer Protection Area. Then the next slide is the potential West Plains Aquifer Protection Area. This graphic on the screen is one we showed probably over a year ago, but just the idea of potentially having another aquifer protection area within the county. This highlights the 3 cities that are on the West Plains: Airway Heights, Medical Lake, and Cheney. Fairchild is there highlighted in red, and total outlined about 18,000 parcels. The aquifer protection area is based upon a per parcel fee for water usage and on-site wastewater disposal. And so that's just the numbers that might be in an aquifer protection area if it were created on the West Plains. And the next slide is we have been discussing, so public works staff have met with the 3 cities on the West Plains and talked with them about an aquifer protection area. They seem generally supportive of it. We met with administrations of each of those, and they seem generally supportive. We need the approval to get the cities included, and then the items that are allowed to be, the aquifer protection area is allowed to be used for are listed there, and we've talked with them. On the next slide is some ideas of what might happen. These are just early discussion items that we've talked about. Potentially county staff be funded for coordinating a monitoring program, education program, potentially a water conservation program, and then some studies that might be, a consultant might do some specific studies to understand how water system might be added, or stormwater, wetlands, things that have come up previously, and just brainstorming ideas, getting what a West Plains APA might do, such that we would look to the next slide is potential budget, and these are just round numbers for what might be used. We've shared with the 3 cities. They are generally agreeable to this idea. They suggested an August 2026 ballot, so a ballot 1 year from today. We have experience on APA now of how that happens, how that process would work, and some of them have. Or they're interested in having their councils get better up to speed on that, and some of them have asked for county staff to participate in that, to similar briefing of this, to share with their staff and how this might go forward. And we're available to do that, and we do that. We'd be interested if commissioners would like to participate. We could work with that. Some of the key pieces is the fee structure. How much is charged? What does it get used on? Those are the things that, with the SBRP Aquifer Protection Area, we were able to use the past as the model, and this is based largely on that. But it can be very different. It could be, or it could be very similar as presented here.
I'd say a kind of highlight of the conversations with the jurisdictions or the municipalities out on the West Plains is, having an idea of how we would launch a West Plains aquifer protection area for the first few years. But understanding that this is a 20-year measure and we don't know with certainty what the needs will be or what the focus will be in 5, 10, 15 years from now. So setting up a framework, a baseline, there is a lot of support for the monitoring program, the education program. Water quantity being a concern for a lot of the areas out there. So a lot of interest in trying to set up a conservation rebate program or something along those lines. All of these are eligible. And so it's letting the cities and the public help inform that path and direction. So one of the questions we want to just make sure we get direction from the board is, to what extent would any of you like to be engaged? Would you like county staff to be leading the conversations with city councils, public outreach, and just making sure that we're following the lead that you want us to set with these discussions? We're trying to get the cities to coalesce around the concept, but once we start getting into the elected officials of the city councils and potential neighborhood groups or public groups, just making sure that we're in alignment with the direction the board would like to set.
I've deliberately not participated in the community meetings you've had out there because I really wanted to have you guys be the lead on this and stuff. And the feedback I've gotten is you guys have done a terrific job. And so I would encourage you to continue to do good work you're doing, and look to you. You're the SMEs. I am not, and stuff. And so I want to help support you, but I do not want to undermine you and stuff. So I would encourage you guys to continue to take the lead on that.
We're absolutely happy to do so. We just wanted to make sure that we're following your direction.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for citizens, they would like an EP out there, so I'm gonna. I think we were all, wanted to see if that could happen, cause ours is how much per person? 15?
It's 15 for using drinking water and 15 if you're on septic.
So 30%.
If you're not on sewer, if you're
Oh.
on sewer, it's 15. So the average in the SVRP is 22 when you do the entirety of it. We're just for budgetary purposes using that 22 number for the West Plains. We haven't really broken that down into the bits and pieces.
Maybe look at that. So you're looking at the same cost structure though.
We've just proposed that and asked for feedback. It's what we know, what we've used for 40 years. We know what we can do with that. If there is more that folks want to be done, then that fee structure could be adjusted, but there might be some good synergy and just whoever's in an APA in our community paying the exact same.
And I think you're aware of the study that S3R3, the stormwater management study that S3R3 contracted and stuff. So you've got at least some information, and the study from Dr. Pritchard's supposed to be done sometime this year. So at least you'll have two baselines to work from.
Yeah, definitely. And even the watershed planning effort that happened for about 20 years from 2000 to about 2020, that was also created, the county led, gathered a lot of that information that Dr. Pritchard studies built off of.
Okay.
So there is a fair amount of information, especially towards the monitoring side, is continuing that, using the monitoring funds similarly as we have on the SVRP aquifer protection area, and creating that long-term database, even just as simple as groundwater level, continuing to monitor that could be valuable.
Mr. French, I know you've been working with Dr. Velasquez on putting together the PFAS task force. Would that be, once we get that off the ground, perhaps that group could give input into
Oh, absolutely.
this
Yeah.
potential and maybe get behind it and get involved with the
Well,
community?
I could see a path where the task force becomes something as an extension of this program if it in fact gets passed and stuff. So we are Dr. Velasquez, Brooke Beeler and I are working to try and put the first task force meeting together for next week. We're hoping to try and adjust schedules to where that can happen. Otherwise it'll be in September because of traveling plans and stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, it very well could morph into, you know, something that staff leads. That'd be great.
And interestingly enough, I'll share just an anecdote from the meetings we've had with the three cities is there's an interesting conversation that was led by the municipalities about how, you know, the PFAS issues on the West Plains are such a dominant part of the conversation. And they really have a lot of other things related to their aquifers that they want a program like this about that isn't just thinking about PFAS, that's thinking about stormwater, that's thinking about water quantity, that's thinking about water quality in more broad terms, that is developing that long range monitoring for what's going on out there for PFAS and other constituents. You know, Cheney has heavy metal concerns that are really impacting their water. And so it was just interesting that the cities were kind of leading the conversation away from that. Like, that's never going to stop. That's going to be a big focal point, a big part of every conversation. But they're very excited about having something that is just really thinking about their aquifers and what the various needs of protecting their drinking water. And so it was interesting that was a big focus of the group.
And I just got a medical report on a natural process to get rid of PFAS in your digestive system. So I'll forward it on to you and have you take a look at it. But it's been medically certified. So, but I'll send it over to you. Have you take a look at it.
I'm trying to think, with the APA that just passed, we asked each city to adopt a resolution or take an action to be included in is that the intent here? We would need Cheney, Medical Lake, Airway Heights for their councils to vote to say, yes, include us in the APA.
Yeah, it's a two-part component. The first part is the resolution saying, please include us in an aquifer protection area. The secondary component is the interlocal agreements, which we just talked about for the SBRP right now, which is setting up the arrangement for fund distribution. That frankly doesn't ever have to happen, or it can. That's choice. We have historically offered that to them, but they can choose whether or not they want to do the interlocal agreement, and that can actually happen at any time. The resolution is critical before everything goes to elections, which should be next April. The cities felt that the timing and the amount of lead we have for educating both the cities, the community, and the public felt about right. They can do their resolutions at any given point in time. I think they're kind of targeting fall, early winter for having those through their councils. So we'd be hopefully a little more comfortable rolling into April. It was a little hairy this time, but that everybody felt pretty good and was in agreement on proposing August, if you were all supportive of that as well.
Just gonna say that it's good that you mentioned the SVR3 stormwater study, because I think that the PDA would be particularly interested in being involved in this, because being able to have better data around water quality and quantity is key for the, you know, development of the area.
Right.
And so, anyway, I see them as a partner in this conversation.
Well, and so one of the visions that I had tried to pursue, but financially it was unfeasible today, but at some point it might become more feasible, is, you know, we generate a lot of stormwater because of the large surface areas that are paved and all that kind of stuff, whether it's the airport you know, Amazon or any of the other the large parking lots and stuff. So we've got a large amount of stormwater. And that's one of the reasons why we did the stormwater study to say, is there a better way to manage that water runoff? In my world, I'd like to be able to capture that water runoff, process it and recharge the aquifer with it, because one of the challenges they have is how do you recharge it? And because of the geology and stuff, there are very limited opportunities to be able to do that. So, you know, in a perfect world, this would be maybe the group to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're very excited that it passed.
Yeah, we are too. Thank you.
I was gonna say, I was a little disappointed we didn't get to 80% of the vote. That would be bad.
Well, and a big shout out to Pat's team. They did a great job coordinating with the other jurisdictions, getting the information out there. It was a pretty concerted, and Amy's team particularly really worked hard on that. Very cool that the public support to the extent that it did.
Now, if we want to take on the jail project,
But
If we're tied jails and drinking water, maybe we have some.
And there was an article in the Spokesman about Wally Otter not being used in this campaign. We used him a little bit and we were revamping Wally Otter, so he is still around. Okay. In our education. Cool. So the next item Commissioner CUNY, if we want to,
Yeah. Oh, no, go ahead.
okay. This next one is Paul Henson here manages our floodplain program, and this is a request of the board to approve an interlocal agreement with the town of Rockford to do public works. Interlocal agreement where the county can do public works activities for town of Rockford. It existed in the past, it expired in 2023. So relatively straightforward they would like it to be renewed, they've signed it. And we would like to provide that services specifically for floodplain management. They have Rock Creek goes through Rockford, and they have floodplain there, and we have the expertise to help them permit their projects that are happening there, and request that the board approve an interlocal agreement for specifically for floodplain work. We can also, if they were to choose to add other engineering services or public works related services, they could be added through an addendum to the interlocal agreement. And that is be on your agenda next week. If you have any questions.
They can use all of them. Did a great job down there, but they don't have all the expertise.
Yeah, and it's really great. Nicole is a certified floodplain manager and has got the skills to manage that for our area, and then also for available to work with them. And actually, they had an issue recently, and the state reaches out to us automatically. They see us as the experts here in our region, so they're looking to Nicole to provide that. This will be helpful to formalize that agreement.
No, I think I covered it.
Very good. No, thank you. Okay. The Matt.
Good morning, commissioners. Before I move on to the amended tip, just wanted to piggyback that last item a little bit. Those ILAs, we're trying to get those, I'm sure you're aware, with all of our small communities, and trying to make a blanket ILA where we can provide more of the services that, on that list, it was construction inspection, and we do a lot of work in those small communities through chip sealing that you're all aware of, and other types of work and road preservation. And it's a big help to them. And if we have those agreements a little more comprehensive, then it allows us the ability to go in a more timely fashion and work with them. Having to go in and amend ILAs and do new ILAs is usually pushes us out of the windows to help them in whatever fashion they were requested. So that's very helpful. Glad we're doing that work.
Sorry, commissioners, I wanted to answer one question previously. Ben was able to answer that yes during Lindsay's conversation. Currently, restaurant grease is taken to the city of Spokane's treatment plant or elsewhere. Don't know where it all goes, but we do know that the city of Spokane accepts it. And so what percentage of the grease that is diverted goes there, we have to know that. We do not. We do not accept it.
To go down the drain.
Yes, that we do involuntarily.
Exactly, which I think you have ways of trying to monitor that though too.
And to add, it may also go to other processing facilities, so there's out of regional contracts where restaurants might have a contract with a vendor that collects it and then takes it away to another city, not necessarily disposing of it improperly, just takes it to another city where it's not, their wastewater treatment plant might have capacity.
Thank you.
So on to this item, this is our 2025 amended annual construction program, the TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. And the board's aware statutorily, we're required to both adopt the Transportation Improvement Plan every year and also to adopt an amended annual construction program, which is really the reconciling of how the year actually went. It's the updating of funding, it's the updating of the program, as projects move around, that's all updated with the amended TIP. So you can see here on this first slide, this is really just covering and showcasing where the money's coming from and the great work our team's doing. You can see again, for every dollar of 110 road fund money we put in, we're getting $5.49 from other agencies. That's essentially, we're only putting in 18% of the money from the road fund. And that's just really, again, a tribute to our team, all the work they do, chasing down applications and funding agencies and programs, and they do a phenomenal job. And you can see this year, 10 million of it came from federal, 3 million from our county coffers, 4.5 from the state, and then those are just other and local. Those are usually programs like, well, anything, but a lot of it development for a total construction program of 18.5 million. Next slide. So just wanted to cover kind of the major projects from this year and give you an update. The first one there is the Hatch Road reconstruction. I think you're all familiar with it. It's the second phase of Hatch Road. We did the other phase previously. It's a $3 million project. We were extremely lucky with the current operators strike. Our projects were either just paved out prior to the strike where we would have been impacted, or we're currently working on portions that are non-union workers doing the work. So we so far have been extremely lucky with timing on our capital projects. It was just, again, sheer luck that things timed out. Hatch Road, the underground work being done currently, the sewers is by non-union crews. Inland itself is union. So once we get to the road put back, we're going to hope that the strike has resolved itself. But we obviously don't control that or know that. The next one, Cascade Way reconstruction. If you've been up north, that one's complete. It was a $1.3 million project by Shamrock. Came out really good. It's 50 feet wide, curb to curb. Cascade's a very wide road for us, but that does allow for parking and residents that live along it. There is quite a bit of residential that fronts on Cascade. Next project, Deer Park Milan Preservation. That's that pretty major connection from Deer Park to that little community, Milan. And it's complete also. It was a 2-inch grind and inlay project, again by Inland Asphalt. Next slide, please. So Country Homes Preservation Project, we married that with Marion Hay Force Main Project. The contractor DW Excavating is currently working on the Marion Hay Force Main. So that's again where we're getting lucky, and the underground work that's currently going on is all by non-union workers. The final one there is Elk Chattaroy Reconstruction. That's by Versatile Industries, and they're non-union, so all that work is proceeding. When they get to the point of surfacing, though, most of the asphalt providers are union, so we're just hoping that things time out, that we're able to continue and get those done timely. And I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions. You should have in your packets also the actual amended TIP that lists out all the projects and where the funding came from on each one and when they're scheduled to, and it's by category if you get a look at it. happy to answer any questions.
This just, you and I get to have a conversation here, Santa. I'm getting a lot of constituent calls, so.
Which one?
Peanut Hills,
Oh,
Stevens Creek. I
yes,
just down at Stevens Creek yesterday, so.
Yeah.
Uh,
you bet.
So, yeah.
Sure, your convenience.
Oh, and 32nd at Sullivan, that's the other one, but the new development going in, but that's one we want to try to look at in the future anyway.
So I don't know whether you saw the article in the paper this morning, I've been following what the city of Spokane is talking about doing with regard to better qualifications for public works projects. That's gonna change the bidding environment in the community. And I think maybe send more bidders to the county than we currently enjoy. So if you haven't had a chance to read that article, I encourage you to read it. And you get a flavor for what, how the landscape is changing from the city standpoint. And how I think we can benefit from that. So, been following all of that.
Well, and another credit, our construction group, we've worked hard to improve the relationship with our contracting community. And it shows, you know, our bids are coming back. We're getting a lot of bids. We're getting a lot of really aggressive bids. So it's a huge deal in our program to have that kind of rapport with the community, because it's reflective. When they're busy, they don't have to bid us, and they won't if we don't have that good rapport. And they know that we'll work with them when things come up, because things always come up in construction. That's the nature.
Shockingly, even getting good bids,
Yeah, normally, and part of it is the economy. Obviously, the private sector work is slowing down, and that impacts us getting more bidders on public work.
But I can test the back of that relationship, so I think I've been good to see over the years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle, you keep staying at the.
Let's go park
front of
here.
the Table, yeah.
That's okay. So this is a really cool opportunity that came our way on behalf of Detention Services, actually. So Department of Ecology has a community litter cleanup program for solid waste management. And it has historically been managed by the folks in Detention Services that manage our Geiger work crews. As they have less and less capability to have crews out on the streets, they've been struggling to expend the funds from this grant program, and actually in the last cycle had to return some funds. Ecology really wants to see these spent, and so they approached us to see if we would take over the grant. If you go to the next slide, you can see the goal of the program, helping, particularly with illegal dumps, public education and outreach, litter, and if you go to the next one. It's $154,000 over 2 years, so about $76,000 a year, or $77,000 a year. And it's a 2-year term. We in the roads department spend that entire amount about annually on illegal dumping. So this is a great opportunity to recover some of that cost that 110 currently eats for illegal dumping. We get to manage a grant, but we're good to put those funds back into the roads. When we were discussing with Detention Services, we let them know, to the extent that they still can use these grant funds, they still can. They'll just work through us, we'll manage it. But they're probably talking 10-20,000 of it. And there's been a couple other programs, the River Keeper, with some of the river cleanup, and offsetting some of their dumping fees and things like that. Easy to keep those programs going, but the lion's share of it will end up reimbursing the road fund for illegal dumping.
That's great. We certainly don't want to have funds go back, because we're not using them, but I know like fair uses the work crews for the fair, you know, and all of that. So I just want to make sure we're still keeping the integrity of some of the other purposes that we needed around the county.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, you know, prior to the current legislative budget woes, they were kind of hoping to grow this program even further. So we can show that we will likely blow through this well ahead of the grant cycle, which is a good sign to them that should there be funding available, that ecology would like to see this program grow. So we want to demonstrate that, yeah, you could double that amount. We'd have no problem going. So who knows if the ledge will fund it in future bienniums, but it's funded in this one to this extent. We're going to demonstrate success.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about how the fair, because I thought the fair had to pay for the cruise.
Yeah, this is separate from the fair. It's all the stuff that's happening in the right of way. Illegal dumping, Kyle's team comes across tires and washing machines and whatever else out in the roads that has to get picked up. The past where it was available, the work crews did some of that work. So this will just be continue to work, but actually provide funding for the work that Kyle's team does. And then fair does something separately with the work crew.
Yeah, the activities have to be specifically related to litter.
So the second Amber, Matt wanted to say something, so I'm gonna have.
Oh, just wanted to comment. Interestingly enough, we just got a note from Becca McConaughey that did a lot of the finances for our maintenance group. Since 2023, our cost to handle illegal dumping went from 70,000 a year to 140,000 a year. It's doubled in 2 years. The amount of illegal dumping we're seeing and needing to contend with, and that pulls our crews away from doing the good productive road work they're supposed to be doing. So these funds are very welcome. And you know, again, that we would love to see the Geiger crews become a viable option. Again, I understand the challenges that they're facing, and that may not be a reality, but that's just another thing that we would really love to see come back into play, because it's a huge impact to the more at the time almost than dollars. It just really pulls people away because we have to go. It's a lot.
You know why?
Just like Commissioner Waldron.
No idea. The amount of tires we've seen this year, I mean, truckload after truckload after truckload, dump truckloads of tires.
Is national, is this just local trend? I mean, statewide, nationwide? I mean,
I don't have
Just
a good
seem-
answer for you. Other than that, we have a lot of rural roads and a lot of places without a lot of eyes on them. You know, it's pretty hard to dump a flatbed full of tires on the South Hill.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to do it back in some corner of the West Plains.
South Hill, if you do it after 2 o'clock in the morning, it's really. Just kidding,
Sure.
Well, one thought I had, because I know the crews are really busy. And I don't know if you had looked into that program, the Dignified Workday, which is a program that hires folks to go out and do manual labor in the community. A lot of people who are unhoused or trying to find stable housing. I've heard really good things. I think the ESBA group or the East Sprague has contracted with them to clean up in that corridor. So anyway, I've just heard good things, and I don't know what the hourly rate is or whatever, but would you be interested in contracting this out so we could relieve our crews to actually do the road work?
I think we'd be interested in looking at it. I think that one of the big issues that we deal with is we don't deal with a lot of litter, because that is typically concentrated in urban environments more where it's small stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, you're picking up litter along swales and along urban corridors. We have some of that, but the preponderance of our work is, you know, where you literally need heavy equipment and a dump truck and a crew to pick up 30, 60 tires, washing machines. I mean, we actually have the videos of that Euclid, holy cow. I mean, the amount of tonnage is is unbelievable.
Yeah, so I don't
But
know
I'd
if
be
they
happy
have-
to look
yeah, I don't
into
know
it
if they
just to
have
free
that
up our
capacity.
crews, but I don't know if they can handle
Right.
the sheer weight and volume and the heavy equipment even to manage.
But that, I think that's a really
Yeah.
interesting idea. I mean, we could provide the heavy equipment and the operators for
And
that,
support.
but then have them as
So I think
support.
we
to
contract
help.
with DSP and a bunch of others.
What's the name of it again?
Dignified Workday. It's a project through. Who's the overall agency? Is it the Work Source? I can't remember where
They're not connected. I toured with them too. They seem a very good group. I don't think there was a connection with WorkSource though,
Okay.
but
somehow
but you are correct. I believe they have a contract
we
with
have a parent.
DSP and I think even the city. I think the city council gave them some contract, but seemed like a good organization.
I was gonna ask, this sounds great, last year SWAC closed the letter about kind of this issue, and I think at the time. The idea was to look into like a comprehensive program locally created. Is that still on the agenda, or is it something that's
It's,
on a future agenda?
well, it's a conversation that doesn't go away, right? And, you know, to the extent we want to resource that, I think. I mean, at the end of the day, that is a board decision, whether we want to set up a more robust cleanup program and use our solid waste tipping fees to fund it. You know, we've also had the kind of, there's kind of been two-sided conversations about the litter component, dumping component, and the code compliance component. And so those conversations are really gonna ultimately be a board decision. We've had discussions about how it might work. And I don't think we're totally resolved on the who because of that need. I mean, we're doing the work in the road crews. So should that be an extension of the road crews or something out of solid waste that could be funded from solid waste if that was the decision of the board? It hasn't. This is just kind of a nice way to recoup the costs that we're already experiencing out there. But to the extent we grow a larger program, it can be done. We haven't moved it substantially forward yet.
I think at some point it'd be good to have some options, just more fleshed out, just to talk about. We can make an informed decision, yes or no, whether we wanna go down that road, so that's fine.
And my recollection from the last year's conversation too was we had that recommendation from SWAC and that came in formally about 2 months before we were taking over the transfer station operations. And I think staff's recommendation at the time was, let's get our sea legs on the operations and then let's have this conversation. And so it's timely to revisit that as we're starting to get our feet under ourselves for the operations of the transfer stations.
I'm glad you mentioned Euclid, because and I'm assuming you're talking about Euclid by the bridge. Up on the West Plains, or you're talking about it in the valley? By the bridge and stuff, and so it's an area where there is no visibility to it because. you've got the rock crushing operations on one side and the hill blocks the view and stuff, so. But I know that I've gotten a lot of complaints up there about the dumping and also the graffiti on the bridge, brand new bridge, and the homeless are sleeping under the bridge. And then there's graffiti all over it and stuff, so I don't know what we do to try and address that, but it's getting to be a pretty visible eyesore.
Yeah, you can just come up. It's back up here.
Yeah, to your point, Commissioner, we actually barricaded Euclid because we were getting so much dumping there. It was taking so much of that district's time. And there's no houses on it. So it was just an attractive sense. We closed it off. You know, that when the new owner, I believe, is Corridor contracting for that section. And when they start crushing and operating out of it, there'll be a lot more traffic. And I suspect, you know, they will obviously want it opened. And I that might help curtail the dumping, also just more activity in the area. Because right now there's nothing going on. So really an easy place to dump.
Yeah.
Yeah, those nuisance issues are real and ongoing for us, as you might imagine.
Well, and if you run into an extra can of paint and stuff, I'd even be willing to go out there with a roller and, or some of the graffiti.
Yeah, that's always on our bridge crews list to deal, but you can imagine they just have a lot of competing programs.
Yeah, you're always chasing it.
So just to recap, how exactly can the dollars be spent to help? I mean, we talked about all the issues and all that. How do these dollars, how are they expended? Is it just to reimburse us for the costs that we have to do? Or, okay, but,
For litter and illegal dumping.
okay,
I believe and it has to be in the right.
okay.
Thank you.
Can you contact me? Yeah.
Morning, Scott.
Good morning, commissioners. Another busy morning. We are here before you today, a little different than we saw you last week, which is all about the future. Today we are here about the day-to-day functioning of land use planning and permitting in our world. And what we're talking about is updating our fees that have not been updated for some time. This background slide is language that came out of a report done in 2010 and adopted by this board in 2011 and they did an extensive fee study at the time, more what's called a time and motion study that looked at balancing the costs of what at that time was the building and planning department versus the actual time it took to work a permit through the system in the various products that we have. And as you've seen in the past, there are dozens and dozens of different things that happen in building and planning. That was a very detailed approach down to the minute almost, or 5 minutes on how projects were done. And then it was pegged to the consumer price index so that annually by December of each year, we would adjust those fees based on the CPI from that year and publish a new fee schedule effective in January. That was done for a few years and then it was not done after 2018. 2019 was the last time this happened. So we are overdue by 6 years to bring our fees in line. And so we've done, next slide, please. Is see kind of these are the topics, I'm sorry to kind of give you a background. These are the steps that we went through or our predecessors went through to analyze those fees. Next slide, please. The rest of them, then you can see the statement at the end saying once established, we would update this annually from the CPI. Next, please. The Consumer Price Index comes from the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, published in a variety of fashions. The one that is referenced in our work is the CPI for Western states and for wage earners and clerical staff, which is the most appropriate. It was cited in the 2010 document, and so we've used the same one. This one was based, or this analysis is based on a January to January issue, and you can see here what that result is a 26% change over that period of time. That reflects, roughly about a 4.5% a year increase if you look at it that way. And in the costs of the department generally went up between anywhere 5, 6, 7% over that period of time. So the gap between what we should have been collecting and making ourselves a full cost recovery actually got wider during this time. So we're trying to right size that at the moment. Yes.
The cost for the department the number was an annual number, correct? The 5 or 6% or whatever you
Yes.
did. Okay,
Yeah.
just to clarify.
Yeah, and that's based generally on salaries and compensation. That's far and away our biggest issue. Expenses are relatively inconsequential for what we do based on salary. So what we did was look through this number, and the next slide, please. We did a couple of comparisons, and the numbers, of course, are hard to read on this. They're better in your handout. You've actually got the full report in your handout. This is a summary of some of the more typical products that we publish. And what you can see here is based on a peer county average, and those peer counties, Thurston, Clark, Pierce, we looked at what were similar fees, similar products, and applied them. The columns on the far right on this page show that with our current 2024 fees, we are well under those peer counties over time. And even with this CPI adjustment, we are still generally less expensive than most of those, or that peer county average. There are only a few small pieces of that we would be over, since a slightly more expensive fee. And then the next slide, we also did a more local comparison against the city of Spokane and the city of Spokane Valley. This reflects the city of Spokane Valley only a couple of months ago, or a month or so ago, also suggested to their council a series of fee increases, and this reflects those new fees from the valley. So it's as close to being a real-time comparison as we can get. We are competitive and a little above the cities in most of these fees. But it's also important to recognize that much of what county planning does versus city planning does can be a matter of scale, particularly when it comes to land use. Most of the city actions are on smaller properties than county properties, and they involve typically less issues like critical areas, shoreline programs than we do. So there's a complexity that is involved here that we think is reflected. But it does leave us, like I said, I think we're competitive, but we're maybe a little more expensive now than the two bigger cities that are part of what we do. Our consideration on this is we're also looking to take this out, and we've had informal discussions with the Home Builders Association, with some of the builders about fees, and their conclusion, without explicitly agreeing to it, is as long as the county can continue and improve its performance in moving these things through, the fees are somewhat inconsequential. And the fact is that we're coming into a more updated fee is recognized as I would say, the cost of doing business. So we're comfortable with this, and our proposal is first off is to recognize that your predecessors in 2011 allowed for this to be an annual update. So we do not, we're not asking you for formal action. However, if the board wishes to have a resolution to memorialize this in some way, we would certainly work with legal to make that happen. Going forward, what we would do is publish this or take this out in a more direct, explicit consultation with builders and developers for their comment, and then take that into account and publish a new schedule effective the first week in January of 2026, and then get back into the annual update cycle over time. What this does is it brings us very clear, and what we would adjust this in this last little bit, there's two parts. One is if we see and reflect, these fees are reflecting that same CPI increase across the board. If we get comments that one or more of these may be out of line, we would make some adjustment on that to be market sensitive. But the ability of putting this fee schedule in place puts our current planning operation at or very close to full cost recovery, which means that side of the planning department will have no net draw on the general fund. It will be covered by the cost of doing business. And we've slipped out of that in these last few years, and this is a chance to get that back in place where taxpayers are not subsidizing development activity, but it's being paid for by the fees themselves from the applicants. So happy to take any questions. I recognize that we should have been on top of this perhaps in a different way. But if we look at considering, you know, kind of 4.5% a year increase in this, it seems reasonable tying into that CPI over time.
So back in 2011, that was my first year, and that was, we were recovering from the real estate recession and trying to right size the economy and right size our expenses and stuff. And so building and planning was one of those that we needed to really focus on. That's why we've done that. And when the county had gone for a long period of time of not updating, and it really put the county in a bad position in terms of being able to provide a good quality service. So we started to implement the annual increases so that we could keep pace with the cost and continue to provide a good service until COVID. And so getting back on track, I think is not only, it's as a developer, it's something we expect that, you know, costs, you gotta be able to cover your cost. But the big thing, and you hit on it, is service. If we can guarantee good service and good turnaround, then you're happy to pay the fee. But to pay an increased fee and get crappy service is just something that, and stuff, and I know that that's what you want to do, so.
We've had, since we've administratively separated building and planning, Jordan, the building director, and I have built a very solid working relationship on how we're making improvements to the process. And that's continuing to make sure that we don't get glitches in there. And as that goes along, we'll also be working with Kyle and Public Works because they play a role in virtually every permit process that goes through the system. So yeah, keeping our performance up is our key, and being able to keep a staff intact that can do that is a fundamental part of what we're doing.
I think that's really important to provide that level of service and to make sure we're moving those permits. And you and I had talked about maybe if we could have quarterly updates about how we're doing and, like, you know, reporting out to the public and to the development community
Yes,
how we're keeping a high level and trying to increase our level of service.
your CEO has challenged us to make sure we create that kind of a dashboard in the very near future.
Right. Well, that would be excellent.
We're working on aligning our SmartGov, our permitting software with something that can extract that data and provide that sort of public, almost real-time perspective.
Because I think if we make these changes, which hopefully we can get on the system where we're just doing it each year and not playing catch up. But if we do that, we should have a commitment to the development community that we're gonna be transparent, show our work and show that we're trying to be supportive and timely in how we support
Yes,
development communities.
absolutely true.
More of that. Yeah, Commissioner Waldron and I have talked yesterday and a couple weeks ago too on this topic, and it's something Scott and I meet regularly on just to talk about some of the metrics and data. And Jordan has already begun looking at ways that he can take certain data that he thinks is readily important to the community, readily important to you all. So our idea is similar to what we've been doing with our Power BI tool with our jail dashboard, and soon to be seen by all you, a pretrial services dashboard. It's a very dynamic dashboard, doesn't require a lot of uploading constantly. It's a direct connection to databases underneath, identifying some of what the team thinks is important for you to see. Have you all give feedback? What else do you think would be important to see on a regular basis, but around permit values, permit volumes, amount of single family housing starts, multifamily housing starts, time process, right, on key permit single family homes and commercial buildings and whatnot. So more to come on it. The work is beginning to be underway. We've got to make sure our data, we feel good about the data coming through, and we'll have a couple trial runs, and we won't endeavor to be perfect before we come in to show it with you, but at least show you kind of an early look at it, and get some feedback on it. So I'm excited to see it.
So I'm gonna ask the same thing I asked yesterday, especially if we're gonna look at all these fees kind of individually, we need to, I would like to see what between, public works when they came in yesterday with fee increases. With fee increases, what this looks like for what it is currently versus what it will look like for like a new home tomorrow. If with the fee increases, I mean, just so we have an understanding.
Across the board.
Yeah, across the board, because otherwise, it seems everyone needs to have fee increases, we get it. But what does this really mean
Right.
to our
For the average.
person out there?
Yeah.
And the home builders, are gonna wanna see that, we're gonna get asked questions at a home builders meeting. As to what is this really, you guys are doing all these fee increases, what is it really gonna be? And so I think we've gotta look at it. Again, holistically, so we can see and know what it's costing at each of these different junctures.
We can easily do that.
So yeah, so I would ask you and Kyle and Jordan to kind of, so I'm assuming he's looking at possible fee increases as well. If we could get that, so we can look at it as a whole picture. And make that determination on the increases, because it's easy to go, okay, public works, sure, planning, sure. But then when you look at it all, and that's where we're gonna get citizens calling us going, you just raised our fees, how much to do something? That we just have to be aware that, and we're making that informed decision. So we have the answers too when citizens call us. Commissioner Jordan and Commissioner.
Agree. And I was gonna, maybe it's more of a budget presentation question, but it'd be interesting to see too, as we go through the budget process, what the impact would be on the departmental budget if this happens. And then I'm just curious too, on the permitting side, kind of what the staffing level is. Are we fully staffed, hiring trends, those kinds of things?
Commissioner Curtis and then Commissioner.
Just sort of for my clarity, so I know I'm reading your grid here correctly, the table that you had. So when it says the 2024 base fee, so that is really also the 2019 base fee, correct? So you're saying you haven't, so, okay, so when it says 2024, that's the same price that was charged back in 2019. Okay, because I know, so as I'm seeing 24 and then 24 base fee and then 24 plus CPI, it's like, that's a huge jump, but really it's a jump from 2019, not just from
Correct.
24 to 25. Okay,
Correct.
okay, just want to make sure that I am reading that correctly. Okay.
So, I'm gonna make a comment that will help put these things in context a little bit. Because when we're dealing with the development community, we talk in terms of weeks to get a permit. Where in Thurston, Pierce, King, Snohomish, they talk in terms of months to get a permit for the same project. So we're really competing against ourselves to become better. And so I'm gonna make that point that in our universe is small. And so we're competing with ourselves to be better. I just spent time in southern Idaho where they're growing like crazy down there and fighting to get to a pace that's equal to what we are now. Now, we have been better. I'm hoping that we will get back to being better. But I just wanted to provide some context that, we got good staff and we got good processes. We just got to make them work. And so I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
We will put together that sort of composite chart of what a permit looks like across the spectrum for you with building and public works. And then, like I said, it's up to you to make a decision if you want to memorialize this in some way, but absent that, we would be prepared to publish this in January and move forward without any further action from the board. But we will still get you, we will get you that for your comparison and you can decide how you, if you want to take a more formal action.
So I'll just add this just for context. Many of you know I do architectural work all over the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. And the best jurisdiction I've ever worked in was Twin Falls. And I was the design architect for Mariposa stores. I did all of their stores in West Pacific Northwest and stuff. So it's the same store for community. And so I was doing the project out in the valley for the Valley Mall and also one in Twin Falls. Same store, 6,000 square foot store. Submitted, and this is when the county had Valley Mall, and it took 60 days to get a permit on a store. There was a cookie cutter store in Twin Falls. I submitted the drawings, overnighted them on a Friday. They got them on Monday. That following Friday, they called me and said, your permit's ready to pick up. And I was shocked. I said, how do you do this? And they said, but for every project that comes in, and at some point, I'd love to be able to have us get there. We have what we call a concierge service. We assign a staff person to marshal that project all through all the departments and everything, get it to permit. And their job performance is based upon how quickly they can get a project permit status. They have a metric that they measure their performance against. And I know the private sector does that with us. They don't always tell us what their metric is, but that's an ideal service. And part of the challenge we have is that we have so many external departments, the health department, the labor and industries, and all these other agencies that have to sign off on our building permit, that it makes it problematic. We can do the work and then the project will sit there for weeks waiting for another agency to perform. Concierge can bang on that desk and say, we need that permit. So my goal is someday get us to that position, but that's just to give you context for what good service is.
We would share that emphasis. It's something that, you know, Scott will remember this too. It's something we tried to create on the other side of the river, which was more of the one-stop shop where there was a account executive for major projects that would be the point of contact throughout the process. So it's a system that's been used. It's something we don't have to invent a wheel. Yeah, we would like to have something like that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask though, to Commissioner CUNY's point, she said, we assume maybe Jordan is also looking at increase, do we know?
No, I think
These are all inclusive.
those are planning only.
No, these are yeah.
Only planning.
Do we know, is building looking at any adjustments?
No, I think we're in good shape.
Okay, I was just gonna say, because I wanted to kind of second Commissioner CUNY's concept there of let's look at these all holistic, if we've got a bunch of departments that are looking at that, we need to look at these kind of in totality, all of them.
The major fees are gonna come from three places. They'll come from planning, building, and public works. And we will organize that and show you what that looks like for typical residential commercial projects. So you'll see a bottom line. Here's the check you have to write when you come in the door.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's what it is currently, and here's what it'll be if we approve all these.
Correct.
And
Thank you.
And on the public works side yesterday, I think that there was a mention that there's an hourly rate right now, but maybe that would be going away. So we should have an estimate of what that would be compared to the set fee that was being proposed yesterday too.
Yeah, I'm visiting that with the team to provide some feedback to them, because I think there was a missing gap there that gave an impression maybe it was going from $150 to $3,000. And what was missing is every developer's built an hourly fee right now. So some of them might maybe 3,000, some of them maybe 2, and filling that in to say, hey, they're trying to bring some more consistency to it versus an unknown hourly billing when they go through the process, yeah.
Which is why if we look at what it currently is costing, should give us a better idea of what that is.
And I don't think building, I've met with Jordan, I'll verify back with him, I don't think there is, if anything, he might propose doing adjustments within the fees, but overall, the health of the building fund account is fine. So that would suggest to me that we are setting our fees appropriately. They just maybe one permit might be a little bit higher than it needs to be, one permit may be a little bit lower than it needs to be, but overall, I don't see the need to do an increase in fees. Building department.
That would make the question, are we doing everything we need to do to get it out time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, so if we're not looking at increasing fees, then where are we, getting permits out, and are we behind, are we, all of that, so that's the flip side of not, so, but those are the questions we need to know, because just like Shrek, we need to know what our level of service is.
Yep.
So.
Which is the dashboard that you referenced, would that include Jordan's department, I assume?
If you think about the permit cycle, everyone, Scott's team weighs in on it, they have an impact on it. Kyle's team has an impact on it, but the overall issuance of a permit comes from our building department, right? So having that be the overarching umbrella and then feeding the data up from everyone else. So it wouldn't be 3 dashboards, it's one dashboard with the relevant component.
Over the last several years, because there's been a lot of complaints. We've really been working on getting all the departments to be talking together, so they know if it's sitting in Public Works waiting for, some analysis there versus where it's sitting. Because that's been some of the complaints from citizens, is like, oh, it's sitting over in Public Works on the floodplain stuff, or, just different things. So we've been trying to make sure over the last several years that everyone's talking and can track where it's at to do it in a more better manner. So, and they've been doing a good job, so. Okay,
Thank you. We will
Thank
get
you.
back to you.
okay. Wes. Wes.
What we have before you is a request for annexation into Fire Protection District number 8. It's approximately 40 acres of unincorporated county land that we incorporated into District number 8. This is an area that's around like Green Acres, like a peak area south of Liberty Lake. It's the northeast quarter of District number 8. Washington law provides 2 avenues to approach this with counties that don't have a boundary review board. Option 1 is where in the area proposed to be annexed, you have 15% of the voter base that files a petition saying you want a special election to decide whether or not we're going to annex the district. So that petition is approved in the district and sent to the county and to the county auditor to conduct a special election to decide whether or not they're going to annex it in the district. The second option is where it's called the petition method. It's a bit of a misnomer because both of those options involve petitions, but when I say petition method, I mean the alternative to an election method. This is where instead of 15% of the voter base of the proposed area, 60%, the owners of 60% or more of the area proposed to be annexed files a petition to the district. District approves and is sent to the county. The county conducts a hearing and then signs a resolution to approve the annexation without an election, because they already have the owners of 60% or more of the proposed area already have signed the petition and approved the annexation. So that's what the district is asking for. They're asking that the county hold a public hearing. You have to notice it for 3 consecutive weeks, and then you have the hearing. Then you'll sign a resolution approving of the annexation into District 8.
So of that property right now, where's it? Right.
This is unincorporated. It's not in a fire protection district.
Okay.
Yeah. Also just as kind of a housekeeping matter, I would also request that the board just add this as a by-leave item for this afternoon. I already sent a copy of the notice to Gina. The notice, as I said, is for 3 weeks. I'd kind of like to wait an additional week, so we can have the hearing on September 9th.
So we do it as a by-leave item, Matt. Do I open up for a public comment to even put it on the agenda as by-leave? Or you'll let me know if I apply?
That's a good question.
It's a notice, right?
We need to have it available for everybody when they show up. With public comment, I'll have to look at it.
Just let me know by 2.
Yep.
Since today's gonna be that kind of day.
We'll have 2 by leave items today, so that's the same answer.
How many, I guess it's curious then, and you don't have to answer today, but like, I'm curious how many acres of land we have that are not in a fire district, protection district.
I don't know, when I looked at my map,
There's a map, I think,
Yeah.
somewhere on the county website. There's a fire district map that has ones that aren't covered.
yeah, there are some significant portions of unincorporated county that are not currently in a fire protection district. Fire District 13
DNR.
looks very wonky when you look at it in the map. There are certain pockets that are unincorporated into the district. And then Fire District 8, there's kind of in the northeast, there's a significant chunk of it that kind of actually pushes into areas that are typically covered by the district, and that's kind of part of the acreage that they want to annex in.
Okay. Very good. Happy to do it as by leave so we can get the process going, figure out what I need to do. Okay, thank you. Gonna take us to Mr. Cogan.
Thank you very much. Roy Cogan, Madam Chair, members of the board, always a great pleasure to be here. We're here to brief you on a proposed resolution calling a public hearing. It would provide input for the County Commissioners on amend the existing tax increment district called the River District. To do 3 things. It would extend the termination date until the end of this year, till July 1, 2034. It would change the definition of public improvements to encompass the current definition. Because the River District TIF was established in 2000, since then there have been amendments to the statute to permit permanent affordable housing. Number 3, as required by the statute, we would increase the maximum principal amount of money that can go to public improvements from 20 million to 30 million. So the way this started is in about 2000, the state of Washington adopted a program called LIFT, Local Infrastructure Financing Tool. There were 5 demonstration projects. Lee Lake was the recipient. Was awarded one of those. They received a grant of $1 million a year through 2034, July 1, providing they matching. So what we did is we matched it by forming the River District TIF. We believe, and Mr. French, I think you're going to hear this from Jim Frank in your presentation. The River District TIF is the most successful TIF in the state of Washington.
Okay, just a second, is Mr. Frank,
Pardon me?
is Mr. Frank participating in the conversation?
Pardon me?
Is Jim Frank participating in this conversation?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Because there was no infrastructure there. And now if you drive to the River District, you can see how successful it is. So speaking of Mr. Frank, Jim is supporting the project. Even though the county is our client, Jim is paying our fees, and we've done that with every tax increment district. And the reason we do that is a lot of these districts get formed and nothing happens. So we didn't want the county to be obligated to pay us if nothing occurred. Jim has told me that we could represent the board, that if the TIF is extended, he will not benefit from it. He's been reimbursed for everything he wants. So the money would go to the city of Lumberton Lake for public improvements. And Kyle Dixon is sitting behind me, finance director for the city of Lumberton Lake. So when we first formed the TIF, the participating local governments were the county, the library district, the Spokane Valley Fire Department, and the city of Lumberton Lake. Each entity contributed its increment. What's been discussed with this TF is with current budget issues with various public entities, that may not be the right thing to do. So we need to raise $1 million through the TIF. There was a meeting at the fire district a couple of weeks ago. The city, the fire district, and I was there explaining things to them, how it works. So the fire district wants to participate. I've talked to the library district, they want to participate, their whole amount. But that's only $5,800. And the county has not made a determination if it will contribute all, portion, or none of this agreement. So the way we're going to draft the doc, so what we have to do is we have to have a public hearing, so the board can receive input on whether or not this is a good idea. Then based on that public hearing, if the board decides to go forward, then we need to work on an agreement. And that agreement will do several things, one of which will describe the allocation of each participating political subdivision. And the current language we have proposed, this is the final resolution, is each participating taxing district, language of the statute, will determine on an annual basis if it will contribute all, portion, or none. And we have a procedure built in where an officer of each public entity will have to notify the county treasurer's office on an annual basis what their participation is. So that's one option. The other option would be for each government to make a fixed determination on what they're going to contribute. And that would be easier for the treasurer's office to deal with. I have talked to Krista Rice. She's talked to the assessor's office. For Spokane County, last year's contribution was $460,000. So what the resolution does is it calls the public hearing. To provide input to the board on amending the TIP documents as I described. And the thing that has me, as bond lawyers, we just worry about everything. It just comes with the territory. And, we're in the middle of August right now. So I prepared something that kind of outlines a time frame because I start to worry about timing. If we don't do this by the end of the year, it expires automatically. So the library district, for example, meets once a month. Fire district and the St. Liberty Lake meet twice a month. The county meets every week. But what we have to do is, if the board determines to go to public hearing, we have to provide notice. 10 days by publication, we have to post 6 conspicuous places within the district. So we have to pick that hearing date. Then the board can either act on the hearing date or adopt the resolution, or it cannot. It could be at your next meeting. So once that gets adopted, then we have to work with your staff to negotiate, and the staff of each political subdivision to negotiate the agreement. The main issue the main issue is going to be how local governments are going to participate. So we can either do it fixed or we can do an annual determination.
So the public hearing is just on the fact that we're going to extend the TIF, or does it have to be on the determining the amount at the time?
Then the TIF, expand the definition of public improvements and include the maximum principal amount that can go to public improvements. And again, even though Jim Frank's back in this, he would not benefit from any extension because he's been reimbursed everything. Needs to be reimbursed. Centennial Properties may have a new project out there. I've not talked to them, so I don't know what they're doing. But the resolution does not make any commitment on behalf of the county other than to get input on the proposal.
But it is true, Madam Chair, that once the board does get in, hold its public hearing, and if you decide to extend the term of the TIF, increase the maximum amount of public improvements from $20 to $30 million and expand the definition of public improvements to include other items that have been asked the legislature. At that point in time, you will be authorized to execute an agreement or agreements with all the districts involved in this, where you will agree on your financial contribution for the remaining term of the TIF. And I think the board members will all recall, the county commissioners have already extended this TIF 5 years already once. And at the time we extended it, all the taxing districts at that point in time agreed to continue with their financial contribution of tax allocation revenues for the extended 5-year term. And I think as Mr. Cogan has indicated, we haven't yet discussed with all the taxing districts what their intent for allocating their tax allocation revenues for the next time frame would be. I agree with Mr. Cogan. I prefer a fixed amount because the fixed amount is very clear for the treasurer and it doesn't require the board or the taxing districts on an annual basis to get documentation to the treasurer's office so they know what they're doing. And that's easy to miss. So if our best position would be, as Mr. Cogan said, a fixed amount from each one of the taxing districts. But we can do exactly what Mr. Cogan has suggested. We can provide that at the time the county commissioners, for instance, adopt your budget for 2026. We would include in the resolution adopting your budget the actual financial amount in numbers that you contribute in 2026. And that could be anyway between whatever number you want up to the maximum amount, which would be 75%, somewhere in the nature of $400,000, Roy, I assume.
Well, that was the county's
75%
last year.
Yeah, last year, but
It was 460. The numbers I've heard talked about were for the county anywhere between 75,000 and 200,000.
We haven't said any
We haven't
numbers.
said-
Yeah, no.
That's why.
So
So I will just speak in, is that we have gone and met with Liberty Lake. And yeah, under our budget situation, it's like we can't. I don't feel, and again, this is kind of in my district, so it's been something I've been trying to look at. That we can continue to contribute at that level, knowing where we're at. And so, we asked Liberty Lake to meet with the districts to talk to them. But the issue is they have this opportunity to get $1 million from the state through 2034. And we don't want them to miss out on that. So we want to make sure that we can help do what we need to do so they can get those matching funds. We don't think we have to stay at that high level. Kyle, you can speak up if you want to. So it's trying to figure out where we're going to be and where we're going to be at to make this happen, because I think we all see the need. There's no PDA out in that district, in that area. So this has been actually a very successful opportunity for development, which as economic development happens, we still get 15% of the sales tax revenues, so I see it as a good thing. It's been very successful, and we do want to see, they're one of the few jurisdictions that has this opportunity for the matching funds from the state. So that's why I was asking for kind of a variable amount that we could determine, so we could see where we're at. So Kyle, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I guess a important distinction to make. So the last time we extended the TIF in 2020 to December 31st, 2025, the 3 taxing jurisdictions and the 4th including the library collectively were contributing roughly $750,000 towards the $1 million of the match that we needed. So Liberty Lake as a city, through our real estate excise tax fund, would contribute that delta to get to $1 million every year. Each year prior to, once we hit that critical mass where each of the 3 taxing districts collectively did reach that $1 million threshold. And so as a visual of how successful this TIF has been, in 2024, the 3 taxing districts collectively contributed 1.6 million. And so we have far exceeded the need for each taxing district to contribute their full 75% allotment. And so one of the initial discussions was kind of hopefully getting the three on board with some sort of reduced amount to hopefully capture that maximum benefit of the $1 million that we can match to collect the lift each year, while allowing each district to claw back some of that contribution.
So the way the process would work, if the board has, I'm sorry to interrupt you. As a public hearing, we would get guidance from each political subdivision on how they want the contribution language like. And that has to go into an agreement the board has to adopt. Once we have all of that information, we would complete drafting that agreement. We agree with the board. And what the county said in the past is the county will not take final action about the agreement until each of the other political subdivisions has. So that's what I'm saying.
So Commissioner Jordan, then Commissioner Kurtz.
Just for historical perspective, is the purpose of TIF specifically about the river district development, or is it a larger purpose in terms of why it was set up initially?
It was a combination of both. It was principally the river district development. Because Greenstone wanted to develop there, but there was no infrastructure. And they couldn't afford to make their own infrastructure and do the development. And that's why TIFs were originally established. That was the purpose. And then it was very successful that Centennial is also developing out there.
Mr. Kurtz.
So that was the Greenstone had the foundation development.
Can I do a follow up on that? So if it's being renewed, is there anything in the kind of formation documents that address kind of boundaries, scope of where geographically the dollars can be spent? And would that be different, or would it be the same boundary? Okay.
Same boundaries, and in the original document that the board passed, it identifies the public improvements which can be paid for proportionally by the money from the TIF and the lift. So it's all identified, and actually we have an agreement with the city of Liberty Lake where we identify them in more detail that we work with, and that's the document which we use now in conjunction with purchasing public improvements within the boundaries. None of that would change, Commissioner.
And does anyone have a map I could look at of the area? Be
I'm
interested
more
in
than happy to get you that map. I don't have it right here, but I'll get it to you sometime today.
Thanks.
We have a
Public-
leaps and bounds description of it.
Our Public Works Department actually, monitors, like Liberty Lake has to ask the Public Works Department for reimbursement for those TIFs, and we actually approve those reimbursements, I think, once or twice a year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Part of this money went to the Brewery Overpass Bridge up in the lake, which was important to the fire district for better access purchasing purposes. So no, it's and that would have been a really tough project without the TIF.
So I'm much more well versed on the PDAs than I am all the intricacies to a TIF, but I know that there are similarities. So you talked about the dollars that each of the jurisdictions put in. You talked about library, fire, city of Liberty Lake, county, and that. But how do those and you want to get to that $1 million to get the matching million from the state? How much did each of those jurisdictions bring in based on that TIF area that they're then putting back? Like, so if we put in 460, I assume there's an amount that we got out. What's the proportion? Same with the city. I assume you guys collected sort of that increment taxing, and how much did you bring in based on how much did you put in to?
So
Yeah, absolutely. And so the county is the custodian of all of these funds. And so we started, I guess 2024 contributions. The county contributed about 460,000. The city contributed about 510,000, and the county contributed north of 700,000. And obviously these are pure property tax based assessments. The main benefit from fire is obviously the increase in improved property. City has obviously a mix of commercial and residential, and then to a lesser extent, the county benefits from property improvement, but more so on the economic development piece of that.
So I just handed out all the commissioners, this is a schedule that the treasurer's office keeps for all of the property taxes incremental that have been contributed to the TIF by jurisdiction. So you have an idea of what the trend looks like and the growth that's occurred by each of the jurisdictions.
Oh.
Would it be possible? This is what the contribution has been. But I think to get to where Commissioner Kearns is trying to get to, what was the benefit of that investment?
How is
How
that
much-
report you send to Commerce each year?
Yeah, so I can, it doesn't break it out by jurisdiction, but I can do a deep dive, and essentially it would be. These are the businesses that have been created within the TIF district. This is the revenue they generate. This is the benefit to the city and to the county. I can do that.
Plus the residential housing that has occurred.
Correct.
You know, kept people in the
Yes.
state of Washington versus.
Yeah.
Can you explain this more, just so? So I'm gonna look at the county line, the one that just says county, 2024 says 379,100. What is that number? Is that how much property tax we collected then?
So based on how the TIF works, each of these jurisdictions have agreed to contribute 75% of their incremental property taxes since the inception of the TIF.
Yeah.
So these are property taxes only. So if you look at 2024, the 379 is what the county contribute out of the general fund. Then include conservation futures of 13,800 and include county road fund of 15,000. Those are all county related
So that's how much we contributed
to the
Yes.
TIF.
into.
Not
Okay.
what we received in incremental value to your question, Commissioner, but what the county contributed from our property taxes.
So the way.
But this is 75% of the value, the other 25% came to our general fund and or the different departments and stuff, so. The argument. Logic would be that had we not done the TIF, that revenue would not have occurred. So it's similar to what we do with the PDAs.
Yeah.
So Josh, what we for
And-
the TIF,
How much did the so the fire district put in nearly 800,000?
Yeah, so they're the primary contributor.
They are,
They're
okay.
based solely on property tax. They're essentially their revenue.
And then the library, so these are actuals on what they contributed.
Yeah.
And library district put in the 472. Or no, that's the city, I'm sorry, city, library was the 5,600, okay.
so Josh, when the TIF was formed, we have a geographic boundary.
Yep.
And we determine the assessed value at that time.
Mhm.
And then for the term of the TIF, the increased assessed value, 75% goes to public improvements, 25% goes to the direct subdivisions.
Just so the piece about increasing the maximum 2030. Is that just because we're getting close to 20 million? The time frame we suggested go beyond that. So then the total TIF amount, 13.7 over those years. Is matched by the $1 million a year from the state. So the total resource available for the projects would have been double that number for the period of time. And is there, I assume if there's reports in the state, there's some kind of description of kind of what the projects have been.
Yes.
That'd be good to see.
I think Commissioner CUNY properly advised Commissioner Jordan. County's adopted a very unique policy to review all the requests for reimbursement from this LIF TIF. And that works through your public works department, and they dot the i's and cross the t's. And then this is the only TIF that has an associated lift.
Right.
because the legislature only approved, I think, 5 of those. And Mr. Frank was very successful in going over there and having them approve the river. I forget the river crossing project. So it's one of the few, and we don't expect that the state's gonna approve any more of these because they lose $1 million a year. Because they make that contribution toward the improvements.
And prior to the creation of the TIF and lift, Liberty Lake was a white spot on the road. And that was it. I mean, a lot of the development, no, I'm not being serious here. There's been an incredible amount of development in Liberty Lake over the 20-year period that the TIF and lift have been in place. And so not only from the standpoint of infrastructure, but you got Home Depot and you got all of the retailers out there and everything. And again, those retail dollars, we get a percentage of that as well. So no, this is a great example of a successful TIF and lift.
And so yes, so seeking the extension that goes through 2034 is what we're seeking, because that way, that's how far the lift extends, is to that date, so.
And is that something the county, is the county the authority that has to be able to initiate the TIF, regardless of contribution? The county is the entity that has to make that happen.
It's a county TIF.
Got it, okay. Even though it's all in the city of Liberty Lake, correct? Does any of it stretch out into unincorporated counties?
No, it's a much bigger area.
Okay.
So there's a piece that juts out over the river, north of the river. It's primarily within Liberty Lake, but there's a piece that's in the county as well.
A map would be helpful. I agree with Commissioner Jordan. It's been 5 years since I've seen the map.
Save the video, he agrees with me.
No, I just wanted to clarify though, I mean, Commissioner Jordan, you just said that 13,752,000. But that wouldn't be the match, the state's only, I mean, the state's only gonna match up to $1 million. So it wouldn't actually be 26 million, you'd subtract out any year that it was over $1 million, right? Okay, so then, so 1.9, but to get the state match, you only have to put $1 million in.
Yes.
So that's what you guys are kind of talking about, like.
Yeah.
You've seen all the allocations, because really the benefit is you get the match at $1 million. And we're almost putting 2 million in this year. Collectively, right?
All collectively.
Yes, yes.
No, we just.
So it's just kind of a question of how it gets divided out.
Yes.
Right.
Commissioner French.
Yeah, and just kind of an FYI for you, for the WASAC conference in November, Jim Frank and I are doing a session on TIF and TIF financing, specifically geared around low-income housing, and how you can use TIFs to help promote low-income housing.
And that's one of the changes we'll be making, because we're adopting all the new definitions of public improvements, Commissioner French, and that's one of them that we will include when we, if the Board of County Commissioners desires to extend this for the time frame involved, we'll be updating the public improvements. So unless the board has any other questions, what I think Mr. Corbin and I would like to do is we'd like to place on the next available legislative consent agenda, the notice of public hearing, which was part of the packet that was downloaded today. And then we'd set the public hearing date down the road for this particular extension of this TIF, if you will.
Do we have to have determined either the amount or the flexibility of the amount in that?
We don't have to have that answer in this public hearing, but we would be discussing, as Mr. Cogan indicated, after the public hearing. And then we'd have a separate hearing on that, where the board would have the opportunity to make its own determination and consider the determinations of the other partner public entities in this TIF.
So we're just having the public hearing to extend the TIF.
Extend the TIF, increase the amount to 30 million, and expand the
definition.
include the new definitions.
And then as Jim indicated, after that, we will draft the agreement. Then there'll be a briefing. Board meeting on the agreement. Well, that's the agreement to determine how you're going to determine your allocation.
Can you, maybe I don't know, either Roy or Kyle send out the map.
Yes.
The map is attached to every one of the reimbursement requests has the map attached to it, and I think we can get that out to all the board members today or tomorrow at the latest, so you can see the boundaries, Madam Chair.
We should probably make that part of the public hearing notice.
Yeah, we can.
Sorry if I missed this, just to clarify, the state matches up to $1 million.
1 million.
Each year.
So if we put in 100,000, the state puts in it. Okay, thank you. That helped.
Put in
You have to put it-
1.1 million, the state puts in $1 million.
Yes,
But
got it.
if we put in 900, we don't get the.
Oh,
You have to
it-
put in $1 million.
Oh,
We have
okay.
to match the million.
Okay, so looking at the chart, it's only been a couple of years since that state match has come in.
So Liberty Lake has always contributed the delta, so if collectively.
Oh, I
three
see.
jurisdictions
Okay.
contributed 750, we would have picked in an additional.
Okay. Alright, so this number for City of Liberty Lake is just the TIF contribution, then there's a separate.
There was a separate, on an annual basis, we would.
That.
Yep.
So the million match has been occurring every year. Okay, alright. Thank you.
It's just not showing up.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
That's a separate revenue stream of the property tax.
Thank you.
Board of County Commissioners in the city of Liberty Lake adopted a resolution in 2007. And in that resolution, the city of Liberty Lake agreed to contribute if there was a shortfall. The balance from 2 sales tax sources.
And I'm pretty sure this is accurate, but the amounts you see in here are just property taxes. So as Kyle talks about contributions from Liberty Lake, that's kind of a different set of books. So they contribute and they get the $1 million. Everything on here is just property taxes. I should ask this too, Jim, because part of this is in the county, is this similar to Beacon Hill where we have different tax code areas? Because I only see on the treasures where everything's going into one account. And
I
are
assume-
they defined based on where investments can be made, or is it the entirety of it? Of the entire TIF?
I don't know the answer to that question.
There are two tax codes that encompass this. So 1421 is the Liberty Lake portion, 2121 is unincorporated Smoky.
And do those get segmented in terms of these dollars in 2121 can only get spent there? Okay, so they are getting spent.
Beacon Hill's the only one that works that way.
Okay,
And the reason for that, Scott, it's a city and a county formed with the school in the city. So that's where we have that separate allocation.
the what?
So when Beacon Hill was formed, we had a Beacon Hill area,
Right.
we had a city area.
Right, and so it was a county area.
Yes, because, so the county area revenue goes to the county.
Right, I know how that one works. I was just asking how this one worked. So this one is not separated out. So the dollars that are generated in the unincorporated area can be spent in the incorporated area.
Yes, and vice versa.
I think Beacon Hill is the only one that's treated that way, Scott. All the others are generic, if you will.
I think that's the only other one that we have that's kind of cross jurisdictional, right?
Yeah, yes.
Except your PDAs, which are set up differently through the PDA.
Yeah, the
agreement.
PDAs are also cross jurisdictional.
Yes. For the benefit of the whole. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
And then Kyle was gonna come also provide back from the board the incremental value that each of the jurisdictions received from the investments. That's what I heard from Howard.
And from sales tax, I'm gonna do my best guess that it's really hard to give you. We don't have any data collection points to say this is the exact amount down to the cent. I will do my best to give you guys an accurate estimate.
The test, that's DOR,
Right.
limitations, yes.
I mean, even if you're just showing, here's what the wholesale. tax
Sure.
rates have been over the years, and we're approximately 15% of that. And that, I think, helps show you how much we've gained by the increase in activity, economic activity.
So legislatively, we're looking at public hearing resolution. Then we're need to see the Lake resolution, the district library district, back to the county for the allocation first, and then a final county resolution. So there's a whole bunch of public meetings that have to take place between now and December 31st.
Yeah, which is what you.
And I think, Madam Chair, just so the board knows, Mr. Cogan has always been hired by the county with regard to every TIF that we've ever formed in Spokane County. And Roy, I think there's maybe 5 of them. And the reason he's hired is because they're very complex. In some instances, we have the ability to issue bonds, and whenever we have the ability to issue bonds, of course, I've had Roy involved in those. And so that's why he's involved in this. And Madam Chair, as you've indicated, we have to be very careful about how we word the documents, that we indicate how much our participation is going to be, because we have to work with not only the treasurer, but all the other districts. And Mr. Cogan happens to know all the partners who are involved in this particular TIF with Liberty Lake, of course, the fire district, and the library district. And that facilitates moving forward in a timely fashion.
So is it anticipated that with this TIF, we're gonna be selling bonds?
No,
No, because that's not the relationship we have with Jim.
we don't.
Okay.
We don't.
All right.
But that is an option that is available. For instance, the Beacon Hill, we eliminated that option. We're never going to issue bonds for Beacon Hill.
Nor here.
When I notice on here, you are special deputy prosecuting attorney, Roy Cogan?
It's because I'm not a county employee.
You joined the team, huh? Like officially.
So when any lawyer, or Jim can speak, just work for the county, we have to be specially deputized. So either a deputy prosecuting attorney or else special deputies, yes.
All the attorneys that the prosecutor's office hires to provide legal advice to the board, like a Steve DiGiulio or someone else, we specially deputize them so that Matt supervises everyone and we know what's actually going on.
Josh, the worst thing is I used to represent the Department of Commerce, the bond program. And we had to be an attorney general, but the special attorney general, who used to call us SAGs. Which I did not like.
We all practice under the authority of the prosecuting attorney.
Well, Madam Chair, this has been a
Thank you very much for that.
very robust discussion, and then we'll move forward to place this on the next legislative consent agenda as Mr. Cogan has indicated. And I'll get the map out ASAP, Commissioner Jordan.
I'll get the sales tax.
We'll make sure that part of the policy too.
And you said there's also a list of projects that intended to be, can we get that list as well?
Yes, sure. Yeah, we have that last. But Josh, what we've got is, we learn as we get smarter so first we have projects down by lineal feet of sewer line or water line, and you're always wrong when you do something like that. So what we do is we're using this whole project definition in the statute.
And as they've extended, because I remember looking at one of these books, it was like thick of, these were the projects that were allowed in the original 2007 TIF. And, as the extension happened before, and then I think now it's here's the guidelines for what projects can be, and not trying to be as specific.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that document that I handed out will be the same type of document. You'll see we have our TIF updates with the board on the budget briefing session. So you're just getting a preview of it, giving you accelerated time of this topic.
Thank you. Find some scraps.
The rest of the clan is coming.
See, I'll set it up, yeah. So commissioners, you're all familiar with the interlocal agreements that we have with various jurisdictions for operating scraps. The team's going to review those with you. A number of, well, I would say pretty much all of them are currently expired and have been expired for quite some time. We have another city expiring the end of this year. And so the team has been working with Matt's team to revise the interlocal agreement. The interlocal agreements have all been fairly different and distinct and not consistent, which makes it very tough operationally to manage them. They're different in terms of service level agreements. They're different in terms of any reference or no reference to advisory committees. They're historically have not been allowing us to do cost recovery, which has led to the county carrying the largest amount of the costs, yet our amount of activity is not the largest. It's nowhere near the largest. So there's a number of things the team's going to go through here, kind of give some historical perspective, share with you what the current interlocal agreements look like in terms of revenue generation, and then also what they're proposing in terms of aligning for one interlocal agreement consistent across every jurisdiction who wants to continue to be part of SCRAPS. So I'll let them take off and I'll probably chime in throughout the presentation.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. So, yeah, we're here to talk about the interlocal agreements. So, I mean, just a few things we want to touch on, just kind of what we're forecasting into 2026, and then really kind of tracing where is the money being spent. And then going into the interlocal agreements, talking a little bit about who's currently active with us, going into the cost recuperation, and then kind of a high level overview of the language that's being presented. So if we go to the next. So unfortunately, a lot of this presentation is going to be a lot of numbers. So here on the left side, you're going to see a lot of our budget for last year, and then what is expected to be in 2025 if our interlocal agreements maintain the way they are. You'll notice that we unincorporated are all the way at the bottom, and we are substantially financing most of this. So the hard question is, where is all that money being spent? I mean, you've heard it plenty of times. Staff salaries and benefits. That is a large portion of our budget every year. Then we also have a vet clinic. This year, we've substantially reduced our trap, neuter, release. It is a national best practice. However, it has some operational kind of conditions that we have found not to be particularly effective in how we were implementing it. So we're looking to try to change it up a little bit, but substantially reducing the cost overall to the county. Same way with we've substantially reduced external surgery, so using third-party vendors to come do surgery on our animals. And then lastly, I mean, our catch-all operational costs. We have vehicles for our officers, utilities. My staff uses an incredible amount of water cleaning kennels, and then just our operational supplies. So vaccines require needles, and that's where a lot of the money's going. So on the next page, you see our 2025 revenue and expenditures. It's separated into left and right. Our left is our actual about halfway through the year, and then our right is the expectation. A lot of numbers. I'll kind of let you sit with it for a hot second. But the bottom right is our net forecast of revenue to expenditures, a loss of 1.1 billion. A new report came out just yesterday, so a little late for me to update, with the estate that came in that you were a part of, and another estate. We're looking closer to about the high 700,000 mark as far as a negative currently. So a lot of money being spent, and as we saw, a lot of it is the interlocal contracts that have been outdated. So if we can move to the next one, and then we're almost immediately, that was just kind of the header. Interlocal expirations and the new expectations. So again, a lot of numbers. On the left side, you'll see that almost every contract with a municipality is expired in 2018, 2019, and 2020. So we've been operating year to year, month to month since 2020 for most cities. City of Spokane does expire December 31st. We have not received feedback from them on whether or not they'd like to renew with us. However, they want to review the new ILA if they are looking to renew. And then the city of Spokane Valley, they are signed with us until 2034. It was a 20-year contract. So they are pretty well locked in and they get to spend $2014. So
Just a second. Nick.
yes.
Just for clarity. Does the city of Spokane has till December of this year to tell us whether they're going to extend or not? Do we have the option to say no?
It is only a unilateral early termination by the city, but it's a mutual agreement to agree to extend.
Okay, so we can say no to the extension. Right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So yes, speaking of extending and everyone renewing their contracts, on our right, we'll see a lot of the new ILA expectations. How it's a little bit more progressive in the sense that we are looking at their percentage of activity. So how much of the resources are they using? And then weighing that against the budget. And so we're also looking to remove the licensing revenue from the city's overall costs. So as you kind of work your way down, you'll notice that their yearly payment, so the city of Spokane Valley is gonna be kind of the big. It's highlighted for the sake of it. It's gonna be significantly different than every other city. But like the city of Airway Heights, when they re-sign with us currently, they are only paying about 21,000. Really, we would expect probably closer to 47,000. So substantial increases to help offset the cost of animal control and the regional model, which we're still motivated to maintain. There is a whole line for what is the differences. It is for some cities very, very minor, $254 for the city of Latah. And it could be pretty substantial for other cities to include the city of Spokane if they choose to renew their contract with us.
Could you talk about, Nick, in the activity column, what does that represent? What does it reflect? Why do you think that's a good metric to use for allocations of expenses out to jurisdictions?
Absolutely. So percentage of activity is brought in through how many calls of service. So how often are we sending officers out to that jurisdiction? How many times we're impounding and other services that we provide to that jurisdiction. So out of 100%, the city of Spokane is absorbing about 52.22% of our overall resources that we have for the county.
It essentially reflects calls for service and animal impounds. Is the basic metric for those.
So I'm more concerned about Rockford, for instance. Their costs are gonna triple.
Correct. Yes. So that's
That City Rock, I mean, what do you think the chances are of them saying, oh yeah, we're gonna triple the cost of animal control?
Well, and this is it's for a presentation and sharing with you what a proposed model could look like. I would imagine there'll be a number of jurisdictions that'll have the same questions around that. Right now, the way I couldn't even tell you how the model was set up years ago, back when scraps was set up. I don't know how the apportion costs came in. I don't know how the county agreed to take on whatever costs that we agreed to take on to. So this is simply, if you're trying to you're just looking at from a cost reimbursement based on amount of services provided to any jurisdiction. It shows what our expected expenses will be next year. It gives them credit. We recommended giving them credit, the cities, for the amount of licensing revenue they generate. They can help with that through partnering with us with education, outreach, encouraging their citizens to license. So the more a city does that, the more they'll be able to offset their costs. So this is just what the projected licensing revenue is. It shows what their current payment would be under the new approach and what their current payment is. So it's meant to highlight, if you look down at the city, if you look down at the county, our expenses based on our volume of 22%, we'd be sharing 22% of of the expenses, which would be about $763,000. We're currently paying $2.75 million, the county is. So we're absorbing nearly $2 million of other jurisdictions' cost. Now, with the city of the valley, because we are in a 20-year agreement with them, we're not gonna be able to move them up to the 700,000. So the county will have to absorb that $356,000 delta.
Good question.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish.
Well, I fully appreciate the legacy of this structure and the fact that it didn't work from day one. And so I don't have any problem. I'm not trying to argue about the cost. What I'm worried about is sticker shock for jurisdictions that are going to see a number that's 3 times bigger than what they're used to now. I mean, if we had that, we would all choke, cough, and spit and go reach for ammunition.
Fairfield's the other one with a huge amount, which are both South counties, so I guess it's, yeah, and they don't have the revenue generation of just licensing animals to make up.
Yeah, it's gonna have to take revenue away from something else. Cause they're not gonna be able to generate, I mean, Deer Park, you're tripling too. And stuff, so that's my observation.
And we anticipated that this would be a sticker shock, and we anticipated that there would be concerns around what the impacts with their jurisdictions are. So this is, you can say, no, we're just gonna have the county absorb those, that's fine. You could recommend a phased-in approach to this. We're just, if you all feel like this is a fair model, then how do we step forward with it?
So the model is basically usage based. Right?
Yeah, there's a fee-based model.
Well, and percentage of activity is kind of the foundational piece to the formula that's being proposed. So this, with the Valley contract being 20 years, it seems like the proposal is trying to distribute the costs out to the jurisdictions based on how much they use scraps, except the Valley, because we have a 20-year contract with them, which essentially allows them to get a sweet deal effectively. So is there any early termination provision in that?
It's one way, only them. And to be clear too, the team has not redistributed those costs to other jurisdictions. That's fully back on the county.
Oh,
We are owning that differential in this proposed model.
Okay.
So there is no subsidization by other jurisdictions, only the county.
And then on the city of Spokane, obviously there should be some sticker shock there too. You said the agreement expires at the end of the year. All the other agreements have been expired for a long time with no apparent change in practice. What does that negotiation dialogue look like to you? What would you suggest?
I would see us, depending on where the board recommends we take this, we would then send these out to the jurisdictions and offer to have meetings with them, talk through it. One of the things that I think will be important is there are some levers that we can pull within scraps that may help us reduce costs. But that's why it's important to have a consistent interlocal agreement. If we have different service level agreements for 10 different jurisdictions, it impacts our ability to manage costs. So if all the jurisdictions say, hey, let's go through all the cost structure, what's all involved with this stuff? We think for our jurisdictions, we think it's less important to do X, Y, Z. Okay, well, let's look at what the cost reductions are for doing X, Y, Z. And if everyone agrees to it, we can reduce costs out of it. So we've been doing some things, the team has been doing some things to look at reducing our costs, look at capping the amount of taxpayer dollars going for certain activities at scraps. But I think it's really, we welcome the feedback from the jurisdiction to say, these are the important things. These are the less important things. And if we deprioritize those, what would our cost reductions look like across all the jurisdictions? So we don't want to just say, here's the model, take it or leave it, or here's the service, take it or leave it. There's going to be some core things that we have to do as animal control and protection. But there's some other things that could be more voluntary. The TNR program is a discretionary choice of a use of a service. It's not a mandated use of a service. We certainly have to do dangerous dogs and appeals, and we have to have a place for animals to go and care and feed them. We have to do our rehoming and reuniting. We try to promote spay neuter, try to promote microchipping. We do licensing, but there's a menu of selections within scraps that could be changed if that's what all the jurisdictions want to do.
And just for perspective, what the city of Spokane is paying us today is about $250,000 less than the cost for animal control when I was on the city council back in the 1800s. No,
Yeah.
we were paying more for animal control than we were for social service programs. We were over $1 million for animal control. And that was 20 years ago.
You have to chase down stray dogs on horseback.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Al would volunteer to do it. I mean, part of it.
Quite an image.
Seen the pictures.
The old reels.
Silent movies.
They're all black and white.
Yeah.
And any more questions about this slide here?
I think at some point it might be useful to have some further documentation to show the percentage of activity. I know you kind of give a general description of that, but if jurisdictions are thinking about sticker shock, they might want to say, okay, well, what's that based on? Show us the numbers there.
The activity study is actually part of the appendix in the ILA, so it would be part of the contract.
And it's with the team forwards out monthly to all the jurisdictions what the activity reports are. So they see it all the time.
All
But
right.
yes, for your benefit, we'll send it over to you. It's regularly sent out to the jurisdictions.
So good. So based on this, I mean, I think there is absolutely the potential for sticker shock. I would think the earlier we get this information out to all the jurisdictions, probably the better. So, I mean, waiting till the end of the year, after they've adopted their budgets or when they're kind of in that home stretch of their budgets, doesn't do them any favors. So, I mean, I would hope we're getting this out to them very, very soon.
Our plan, and we'll go through the next steps here because it's on here. There's a couple things you want to highlight and just kind of some of the verbiage changes in the ILA.
Yes.
The other thing is, when I was on the council, we did not allow for pigs, goats and chickens. And the city has added that. So not only is the level of service increased, but the number of animals have increased too. Contributes to that cost.
Good point. There's you can have a lot more stuff now than
Oh, yeah.
a lot more animals
In the
than
city.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of changes.
All right, if we hit the next slide. So just a high level overview of the changes and updates. So, I mean, like we've already discussed, there is an update to the calculation of cost recovery. To include capital items as well. So making sure that our building continues to function along with some of the larger items that we carry as well. We clearly define animal enforcement duties and providing consistency across all of those jurisdictions. Which will include volume and response time for calls and priority schedules. So specifically, having a high priority in one city and not having one in another creates confusion and may fluctuate on how we choose to enforce. Animal care, oh yeah.
So that the previous contract, when you look at the field services section of the pre-existing contract, there was a lot of generalities in the language that they used of what those field services were. And so the way we modified it is that we actually took actual statute obligations and enforcement as the activities that we would respond to. And we broke down, we have 5 priority response time goals now, depending on the different types of calls. So like a public safety threat would obviously be a higher priority. We'll apply like a 1 hour
to 2 hour response time for those. And then we kind of move through the tier to a multi-day response. So like our nuisance barking complaints, those would be like a 3-day response time goal. Previously, the only response time, so we have, basically 4 different goals within that day. So a 1 hour response, a 2 hour response, a 4 hour response, and then 24-hour response, and then a 72-hour response. So those are our separate goals through that priority schedule. Where before they just had 24-hour response and a 48-hour response. And so what our enforcement team is focusing on is we prioritize hitting all of our urgent situations within our time goals. And what we're seeing is that our lower, like our barking complaints or more nuisance related complaints, those sometimes can take a week to 2 weeks to a month for us to get to because we're chasing these higher priorities, but we're focusing on the things that would matter most to the community. Obviously, the neighbor experiencing the barking issue is going to be upset that it's taken 2 or 3 weeks to get to that complaint, but so we modified that, and so we measure our success based on how our officers can get out to these locations, and we can provide those statistics to those jurisdictions. There will be a discrepancy for 24 because we've had this activity study where it breaks down calls for service and it also breaks down animal impounds. And when you look at our activity study that went out, our calls for service has gone substantially down in 2024, but that's not the actual case. So historically, scraps, anytime an officer would go out on a job, even if it's the same reported incident, they would create another separate job with a new case number for their follow-up, and they would create multiple. So you could have one actual incident that had 4 or 5 job numbers associated to it. And so the activity studies, the way they used to do it, they would have an access number. It would look like they would have all these additional activities for that particular jurisdiction where, when I started, it didn't make any sense for follow-ups or looking at case history. So we changed that to using the software system we have and actually incorporating follow-ups. So there would be like little asterisks for 2024 because it shows like 7,000 or 8,000 calls for service, but we had like 4,000 or 5,000 follow-ups, which would have equated to jobs, previous calls for service. So that'll be something we'll need to explain to these jurisdictions, because if you just look at the face without that context, you won't understand that we're doing more calls for service in the field and a lot more enforcements, a lot more infractions and citations issued than previous years, but it'll take some communicating to be able to, when you look at the spreadsheet, it's not clear. But we can provide those follow-up numbers and break it down per jurisdiction to give them context.
So what we provide today, and I know that that's not a uniform appreciation, but the level of service that we provide today is well beyond what's required by statute.
So I would say yes, it's depending on the type of situation it is. So statute doesn't mandate any sort of priority response time goals or anything like that. That's internal, organizational. There are hold requirements. So there are state law and also local law for how long you need to hold an animal. The county law currently, the hold period, so for a dog or cat that is currently licensed, so with the Spokane County, it has a 5-day hold requirement, whereas an unidentified dog, so an unlicensed dog, has a 3-day hold requirement, and for a cat, it's 5 days for license or 0 days for no license. The city of Spokane in our current contract, which is different than all the other contracts, has it based on a known owner. It's not based on licensing, so there is an exception. So there's a contractual difference with like the city of Spokane. So if we know who an owner is, even if the animal isn't currently licensed in the city of Spokane, we're required to hold it based on our contract for 5 days, versus with the county law, it's based on if that animal has a current pet license, would equate to 5 days. State law mandates a 3-day hold for dogs. And so our current county law exceeds that with the 5-day requirement with the pet license, which is a nice benefit, and it does encourage the pet licensing. But there is some differences in that regard. We did correct, early last year in 2024, there were a lot of services that we were providing that had no basis in law. And it was really just an extra, service that most of those have already been eliminated from what we function. I mean, we're not delivering USPS mail and doing things of that nature any longer, so.
Okay.
I I don't know, but I would imagine, you know, the city of Spokane's the biggest customer, so to speak, of scraps. If their annual bill goes from 700 and something thousand to almost 2 million and almost tripling. I don't know, but I would imagine there's a reasonable likelihood they might find another way to do animal control.
Oh, yeah.
So my question for us is recognizing that the general fund's currently carrying a heavy load as a, you know, to fund this operation. What does the cost of scraps operation look like with 52% of the activity reduced? I would imagine that the cost does not reduce by 52% because there are certain fixed costs to keep the lights on, have certain minimum staffing, still gonna have a vet, I would imagine. So that's for us to look at the kind of true cost of different choices. We should be thinking through that piece because that's the benefit to sharing in theory is you can share those fixed costs, but if 52% of the business goes away, we still have costs to keep the lights on. What does that look like?
We do, and the majority of our costs is, as Nick highlighted earlier, are in personnel. And so certainly if 50% of our operations, our customer activity goes away, we have to adjust all of our variable costs down to get away from that. There are going to be fixed costs that are related to the facility itself, lights and utilities, but we can't continue to operate a facility that size and have that many animals in there and provide that much care if we only have half the volume. So we would have to completely change our model to try to get as low as we can. But like anything, when you go regional, costs are shared over a broader group of folks. And when you reduce the regional pool, the costs go up for everyone else who's in there.
Personally, I think we should be really diving into that now, given the realistic possibilities here, because if that occurs, it may end up being, you know, less of a good situation than we think as far as what we're left with and paying for that. And therefore redistributing those costs out to the jurisdictions in a way that might be different than these numbers.
The team is already working on that. It's one of our, when they come into the budget presentation, we'll have a city in, city out. And they, to your question earlier, they already are exploring setting up their own animal protection control. They have a consultant that they hired for them to evaluate. This consultant sent me a note asking for a number of things, and we've provided them all the interlocals, all of our county code, familiarizing themselves with all of what animal control and protection is. They did request to come in and shadow our employees and offer suggestions for improvements and recommendations. And I said, no, we didn't hire you. That's not what we're asking you for. You're evaluating something on behalf of their jurisdiction. So we're trying to provide as much documentation so they can do their evaluation. And to date, I still have not heard anything from the city of Spokane regarding any intent to renew their agreement. So, and that's creates some real challenges for us because we're coming up on a budget cycle and we have to plan for next year. And the unknowns of in or out makes it very difficult for us to be able to plan for a budget, for you all to consider a budget.
When we were going through the process of trying to set up scraps, we started out with a ballot measure that did not pass. That would have reduced our costs because we would have been able to pay for that with property tax. And when that didn't come, but as part of that conversation, we were looking at what are other counties in the state doing? And there are counties that provide a service that's even more broader than what we provide. But there are also counties that, when we were doing the investigation, we said, what are you doing for animal control? And they said, we just make sure that our deputies have plenty of ammunition. And, the reality is that, and we said, that's not the county we want to be. We want to be compassionate toward the animals, yada, yada, yada. And so that's how we ended up. And it was really led by Commissioner Milkey. And, he was very, very aggressive with regard to pushing the numbers and would bend. Well, anyway, that I don't need to go there. So we are, that's how we got to where we're at.
So quick, next steps.
Yeah.
Kind of to Commissioner Kern's point about how do we get these out and share with the jurisdictions. We obviously didn't want to do that before we had a chance to talk to you about it and get your feedback.
That's right. Yep. Last point was just more equitable definition of who can terminate or sever the agreement as well. That's something that we're currently going through with different municipalities. So rollout plan was first a brief view on everything that's happening here. I think we've gotten a lot of really good feedback, and I would like to take some of this back with me. And then we're just looking to seek some approval to proceed. The next steps would be obviously notifying the jurisdictions with the highlighted changes, new agreement format, cost recovery formula, and our consistent expectations for service levels. And then implementing the interlocal agreement as soon as possible, so that way the cost of operations isn't solely or majority on the county, but more shared amongst everyone who's participating. So that's primarily where we're at. We hit the next slide, and we'll open it up if there's any more questions. I've had a pretty good dialogue during, but hopefully I'll open up and try to resolve anything if you have it.
We can certainly, first touch, come back and share with you kind of how the conversations are going. Reinforce with all the jurisdictions, we're open to other ideas you have that could help us do better cost containment, but we need to do it for every jurisdiction. It can't be one. We already have the disconnect with the city of Spokane who's passed ordinances that are in conflict with our ordinance. So we can't have that. We have to have consistency, repeatability, so we can have a streamlined operation.
Yeah, I guess, to Commissioner French's point, the ones that have the big jumps, I'd rather have a phone call with them first before they just get, here's what the new rates are gonna be as we look at this. I mean, I think that just puts people in a defensive mode to start with, rather than reaching out and actually having a conversation with them even before you start. So I mean, so Rockford, Deer Park, Fairfield, and since they, let's say the biggest, and I know we just have, they're very small cities that don't have a lot of revenue sources, so. I really just take what they want. So I would just, say, I wouldn't want them just to receive a letter. I think it's gonna be better in conversation.
Can I ask when, I see the expiration dates for each of these jurisdictions. When did they start? So these prices essentially are what, like Scott Chesney came in and said, these are our 2019 prices that people are still paying today. When did these these jurisdictions begin paying these costs?
I believe the ones that expired 2019, 2020 were 3-year contracts.
3-year. Okay, so they're paying.
So the
16 and
original,
17.
they all had a 2014 contract when they came in. They got an update around 2016, 2017.
Okay.
Keep in mind that the cost escalators for those contracts were CPI. So everything that expired, especially like the last 6 years, has just been month-to-month CPI. So that's how they've been calculating for the last 6 years.
Okay.
So it does look a little bit like a sticker shock for them because that is no longer a relevant calculation.
Okay.
But they haven't been staying static. What their service costs have been being increased by CPI.
Yeah, user fees, essentially. Looking at another way to, another, thing we've discussed, lately with other topics, user fees, so when your jurisdiction uses it more, you pay more. It's the facts, what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Ladies items.
Got one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The Pat's on. I just want to let folks know I was supposed to film my county spotlight, I think a week or so ago. I was gonna do Ryan, the executive director of STARS, talk about the sobering beds and their treatment opioid investments. He got sick the day before, so we couldn't do it. And so KSPS just ran a previous, I think Vicki Dalton's interview I did with her. So if the board's okay with it after I think the next one is supposed to be the airing of the state of the county. I'd like to do stars. Unless folks want to, consider that my turn. So if nobody has strong feelings about it, I could just do stars in October. I wanted to see what you all think. I know how much everybody really wants to get their county spotlight interview.
Well, we've already got our script written, don't we? Yeah, we're ready.
Extra points for North Loop.
Already booked out. I don't wanna have to cancel mine.
Yeah.
Snooze, you lose.
I know. So that's for you all to let me know what you think.
I mean, I'm fine with it.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Doesn't bother me.
So you might have a bit more information about crisis stabilization too, because we were gonna do just Ryan, and then Bobby was that cook from Stars who came and talked to us, and she's got great life experience, so I was gonna have all three of them, but couldn't go through with this.
Just know this will come with a favor in the future
There we
that
go.
we will collectively ask of you, and you cannot say no.
There'll be 4 favors.
All right, one for each.
Just a second.
Just saying.
Did you have something to add to that, or are you gonna do other miscellaneous?
I was just gonna add to that, while we're talking about Spotlight, I will be coming back to the board with a recommendation, maybe as soon as next week about, KSPS Spotlight and contract.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will have it to all of you, but I'm going to brief you that we do have an agenda for the Council of Governments that will be on our 2 o'clock next week. We have to formally approve it. Doors open at 8:30, we'll do the welcome and intros. It's Spokane Transit Authority update with Carl. Spokane Public Schools, Spokane Parks ballot measure with Adam Swinyard. Just informational, not supporting one way or the other. Spokane County UGA update from Scott Chesney. Opioid Task Force update with Dr. Zing and Dr. Velasquez. Dr. Zing kind of giving the latest numbers, and Dr. Velasquez talking about the task force. And then the Public Health and Safety Task Force update with Emily Cameron from Downtown Partnership, talking about what the chambers are doing and to move forward with the ballot measure. 10:3 will be just kind of the roundup and closing comments. And then 10:45 will be the Spokane Interstate Fair opening ceremony and river cutting, and then the fair opens.
So the thing that I need, so STA just wants to, when do you want a double decker bus there? Do you want it before Council of Governments, or do you want it when we come out and have
I
it there
thought they were gonna
after
have one
council?
the whole time.
I don't know. Well, if we're all in at the meeting, it doesn't do any good out there because no one's gonna be there because the fair doesn't open until 11, so. And I don't know if they want to park it there for 4 hours. So,
Okay.
do you want us to see it before we go in, or do you want us to see it when we come out?
About what he wants to do.
Okay.
I mean, I don't care. You'll-
Okay, I'll put it in their court. You got it.
There you go. That's
I'll let
it.
them know. 'Cause yeah, they just asked me when, give them like a, give them a
Yeah,
window of time and they'll be there, so.
so Brenda thinks it's gonna be there at 7:30 in the morning until after.
Oh, I don't think that's gonna, well, we'll see, we'll see.
Happy to let you.
Okay. Maybe if
Yeah.
Carl drives it, but I don't know.
Does he drive? Sorry.
So for the ribbon cutting as a chair and vice chair, speaking, if we smile and look
Yes,
pretty,
that's
okay.
Erin had requested that just because trying to.
That's great. I'm
everyone
good with
talk.
that. Just want to make sure.
So.
If you're there, you'll get a shout
I'll
out.
do a lot of nodding.
We'll
Thumbs up.
we'll point you out.
Okay, I'll wave.
Commissioner Jordan, wave.
So anyways, so just briefing you today, because it'll be on next week's 2 o'clock, so that way it's done before the call.
Awesome.
And do you want to speak to the buy leave?
Yes, so on Friday, Commissioner Waldrop and I were CC'd on an email. So with the health district, the Kalispell tribe has made their appointment of the tribal member. They're the first entity that has made the appointment. Best as I can read, RCW, the legislation, the update to the bylaws that we're gonna be adopting tomorrow at the health board, all says as soon as the health district receives the recommendation from the, whether it's a tribal member or the urban health organization, as soon as they forward that appointment on to the American Indian Health Commission for Washington State. That person is appointed. They are a board member. So that has happened. That happened on Friday. So now
We
falls
just-
in our court to
we just
appoint
notified
that
the
first, city person. So, and there is a health board meeting tomorrow, so we think
Oh,
it would be good to do a by leave, so we have a full roster tomorrow.
And Matt, you would put this together on Friday when we knew that the tribal member had been appointed, so.
Yes, it seems to be retroactive to as soon as we receive the nomination, and so that's August 12th, I believe. And Mr. Macio's been working with Ms. Fossum, Council for Regional Health District, and there's a resolution prepared for your consideration if you want to put that on the by leave agenda. But the name is blank for who you would like to. But it needs to come from a city or town.
Should probably bring our vice chair back on, being Michael Cathcart. He was vice chair of the health board, but, and actually, if we get him away, he did not miss a single meeting. So we haven't had a board meeting since he cycled off, and so,
Since we had to.
since we had,
Force him off till.
until we have to wait for the tribal member, so. It's gonna work out perfectly.
And soon you will all.
Should we,
So just
create a-
be ready.
Clean copy with his name actually printed on there rather than
I
handwriting
would,
it.
let-
Yes.
That seems to be the direction.
I think that's great.
who's the council?
Liz Henry is the name.
I know who that is.
I don't know. It said, the email gave some her credentials. She works in healthcare for the tribe, so she has a healthcare background, but I have never met her. I don't
And,
know.
and the new legislation, I thought the county commissioner still had to formally adopt, but we don't formally adopt their members. They just, as
That
soon as,
person should be invited or.
They are a board member
Okay,
now,
great.
yes.
so as soon as Dr. Thompson sends the letter to
American Indian Health Commission,
medical association, or, yeah, health. Commission,
American Indian Health Commission for Washington State.
Then they're officially a member at that point.
Yep.
And so that occurred Friday.
Yeah, we don't have to affirm it or, agree to, it's just, as soon as they're notified, they're a board member.
And the legislation talked about simultaneously adding the elected with them, so that's why we're trying to do this a conversation.
I assume Commissioner Waldriff knows about the by leave and adding. Cathcart.
I don't know.
Oh, I thought, you had to talk about that piece. You talked about the. You said
So
you
she,
thought-
she knows the tribal member's been appointed.
Okay.
She knows that, she was CC'd on that email from Dr. Thompson, so.
Okay.
So Matt just informed me of the by leave late yesterday afternoon.
Gotcha.
Okay. I do not know, but I think she knew we were gonna try to get Michael back on as the vice chair, so
That's been my understanding.
so Commissioner French.
So this afternoon at about 1:45, Dave Herring and Todd Woodard are going to be at our hearing. So that if you want to meet Dave, whatever, he'll be available to do that for the meeting this afternoon at 2.
I have a public health board meeting, state one that I'm on, but from 1 to 3, but I will be down for our 2 o'clock, so I don't know if I hope to be down there in time to do that. Okay, Pat Bell.
I was just going to add for your edification about Ms. Henry. She is the current healthcare administrator for the Camas Center Clinic in Usk, Washington, for the Kalispel tribe on the reservation. Past background with the Nisqually tribe, Seattle Indian Health Board, the Nimipu, which is the Nez Perce tribe, and a number of others, including Kaufman and Associates, which is a well-known Native American woman-owned consulting firm, works with government contracts. So a lot of experience in administration on the healthcare side.
Thank you. And then we have the proclamation, so Josh is the vice chair, I'll have you read the proclamation. I was corresponding with the sheriff, they are probably doing the walkthrough of the ceremony at 2 o'clock, so they may not be able to be there. We are doing 2 copies of the fancy proclamation, so we can have one for the sheriff's office and one for the family that hopefully I can deliver to the family prior to the ceremony.
Then there is the signature sheet. They added the second signature sheet out here on the ledge. So if you haven't signed it on your way out, be sure to sign the second one.
So it's not that anyone is trying to disrespect us and doing the proclamation of not being able, but it's more important for them to be at the service and do the walkthrough. It's and I have to say, I had talked to somebody from the city police department. The city police department is actually taking over all calls for the county, kind of their mutual aid. So all the deputies can be at this. So, so it is nice that all the law enforcement are helping each other out to make sure that. Okay. Pat.
Under miscellaneous, just mention, you all should have seen the chair's email forwarding the information from the sheriff's office. But the motorcade and processional will come by the county tomorrow. I've been talking with Charissa about live streaming that from the fourth floor balcony. So we got a good shot of Broadway for our Facebook page. And I know that there's some media interest in this afternoon's meeting with the proclamation. So we'll have the Charissa down there for a ceremonial photo, and I'll be down there at the beginning of the meeting to help media get set, if any, show. Tomorrow, anticipating fair amount of media on the memorial and the processional, and then next week, looking ahead a little bit, I do anticipate media interest on the COG meeting. It's been common for media to sit in with pen and pad for our friends at the papers, or to have a news camera there. So just so folks are aware, we'll be doing setup. I think I'm going with Brenda Thursday night before for any AV needs, but also to take a look at media. And then I'll get in touch with Aaron about doing a press release announcing the ribbon cutting and the ceremony. It's pretty common to have a few news cameras there as well for the ceremonial opening and ribbon cutting at the fair. That's what I had for you.
Thank you. Okay, so you guys have a couple executive sessions.
To answer your previous question, Madam Chair, the by leave agenda items need to be open for public comment.
Yes, I have a full script today because we have some things that got printed wrong, so we will be opening up. Just so you guys are all aware.
Even for the TIF, the notice of the TIF hearing.
Any by leave. So we have one executive, sorry.
So yes, so the proclamation, because that's we didn't have it listed, we didn't have the draft, so we opened that up. The appointment will be opened up separately. I will do items 4, 6, and 7, and the sub items, except for one item that we're striking. And I will ask for the motion. I'll have to open up for public comment after the second. Since there's an error on the agenda. And then we'll open it up after every by leave item that we do today. So we'll be having lots of public comment.
Get through it. It may not be pretty, but we're gonna get through it.
Absolutely. We have one executive session item. We can either do it this morning or this afternoon.
How long?
20 minutes, no action.
Maybe sure.
Either way. I think it could be probably 15, maybe 10.
Let's do 15.
Liars.
This morning?
Yes, because I
Okay.
think this afternoon is gonna, with all this opening and closing, it's gonna take a little.
Maybe, wow.
Are we going to be having a closed session this afternoon though, like normal? No?
Nope, not
Very
the
good.
plan that I'm aware of. See, okay, some good news.
Okay.
One executive session item this morning, 20 minutes pending.
15.
15 minutes pending and potential litigation, no action. Matt Fulton, Scott Simmons, Jeff Morris.
You have a canvas. 12:30, so I gotta.
Will be done by 12:20.
Setting yourself up for failure.
Okay, so with that, since we do not anticipate any action after the executive session, we will adjourn for the morning and see everybody back for our 2 o'clock.
And Devin Kurta.
Oh.
We're at